Hey, happy Saturday. Welcome to the Mirror Point where reality checks itself. Today, we're going to have an episode that starts where most conversations about consciousness and creations really don't. And that's ancient Africa. So we're going to get right into it. What is going on, everybody? I'm just trying to get my little situation set up here. Hey, how you doing, Sophia? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, but what happened to the intro?
Yeah, I played it. I played it.
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it? Oh no, I hope it came through. Let's see. Um I don't know if anybody's joined us yet anyways, but yeah, I played the music intro. Interesting.
Well, that's
Oh
weird.
well, that's weird. That's weird. Anyways, yeah, man, we're gonna get into some juicy stuff about, long before like modern philosophy or theology, these temples of Memphis. They preserve the
Ptah.
cosmology. Yeah, Ptah, where mind precedes matter, where reality is first conceived through like thoughts, words, intention before it really takes form. So this really wasn't just a myth. It kind of shaped architecture, what we call sacred geometry, the early metaphysical sciences, influencing how, civilizations understood consciousness, right? And so what I wanted to do was we're going to watch a little bit about that and a little bit about the Ptah and what their beliefs and how they
Why
influence.
you had to say it
You know,
like a French guy?
I don't know that. I guess I'm Delon. I'm French. My first name is actually Delon.
Patois. Patois.
Patois, patois, patois. Is it P silent though? Is it ta or is it patois? I don't know. Patois. I don't know.
I
I'm
think
new
it's
to it.
Patois.
Patois. Okay,
Well, who
patois.
fucking knows, man?
Who fucking knows? But from there, we're gonna jump to the present, especially here in this country. So there's a video I'm going to share from Cross Examined with that fucking Frank Turek. And he's going to be interviewing a Christian author who argues that paganism and Marxism threaten biblical truth, family, and freedom. And he's defining pagan as any path outside of biblical scripture. So it's really general. He's
Of
painting with a
course.
really wide brush, of course, right? So, my question is truth discovered through inclusion or is it enforced through exclusion? And what happens when, entire worldviews, like especially ancient ones, are dismissed as dangerous simply for existing outside of a single text? So we'll explore it today. I mean, what do you think about that shit?
Sounds interesting. Let's roll.
Let's get to it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll start playing a little bit. And I've got some key parts on the videos that we'll play. So, because these are long videos. And, if you're interested, just go to on YouTube, Ptah, the African mind that spoke the universe into existence. So I'm going to start here.
The theology of Ptah is the earliest recorded metaphysical model of creation through thought. Before Plato spoke of forms, before Aristotle defined motion, before Heraclitus conceptualized logos, Africa already articulated the principle that mind precedes matter. In Nubia and Kemet, divinity was not distant. It was embedded within human potential, a concept modern science echoes in quantum theory and vibrational physics. The priests of Memphis understood that Ptah was not simply one god among many, but the primordial consciousness from which all other Netjeru emerged.
This sounds a lot like your model, I started to realize. Because you talk about
Yeah, it does,
primordial
actually.
consciousness and vibration and frequency.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
was actually I was actually surprised because it sounds so similar to my own LFM model, and it also sounds a lot like Michael Levin's work, which we can go into a little bit later. I got a few notes
Mm-hmm.
on that. But yeah, especially the fact that they described it as a primordial consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and basically that it creates through speech or sound, which is frequency. Yeah, that sounds a lot like the LFM model for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, really cool stuff.
The original architect who existed before existence itself took form. His name appears in the oldest texts, carved into stone when the world was still learning to remember itself. And his temple in Memphis became the beating heart of a civilization that would gift humanity with writing, medicine, astronomy, and engineering. To return to Ptah is to return to the African blueprint of consciousness itself. To understand that what the West calls philosophy was already ancient when Greece was still in its infancy. The continuity between Nubia, Kemet, and the cultures of Inner Africa reveals a truth that colonialism desperately tried to erase, that African peoples carried within them a sophisticated understanding of reality, a science of the mind and spirit that predated all others. Memphis was not just a political capital. It was a spiritual laboratory where the laws of creation were studied.
And what's really ironic, is you experience or you talk to a lot of people like Pan-Africanists, and they sort of think that, Christianity, they sort of reject that colonization, that their culture was taken away. It's almost like they feel like they originated Christianity, which we're also going to get into, which was basically what the colonizers actually used to rip people from their culture and beliefs like this, So it's
Yeah.
really kind of weird. It's weird like that. It's like if you really want to honor your ancestors, it seems you'd want to really honor your ancestors. You wouldn't want to honor
Well,
the colonizers.
it just seems like the first ontology was that consciousness is primary. And then when Christianity hit the scene, all of a sudden it became the opposite. It started being materialism, and God created in man's image, so to speak. And it's like as backwards now,
Yeah, and you think of the exploitation of nature, like how in Christianity it's taught that man is to subdue the earth, rather than respect it. That we have dominion over the animals and nature. So it's like dominion theology, which is totally
Yeah, and that's
contrary.
complete.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and that's what I'm writing a book about. It's called "The Story of Cain and Abel Never Told Correctly," and I'm gonna go into that a lot in that book. I'm probably on chapter 5 right now, so I'm not finished with it, but it's gonna speak about that big time, because I just give a little bit of a clue. We're supposed to live in reciprocity with Earth, not tilling the ground and just endlessly taking. The builders
Mm-hmm.
of this world are actually working against Earth. You know what I mean? Not in harmony
Right.
with Source.
And now we're suffering from things. They talk about global warming and the depletion of the rainforest, the extinction of species, all of this stuff,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly. And those things create harsher physical environments, which cause us to have undergo fucked up adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
Adaptations. I don't know.
Adaptations,
You
yeah.
know, yeah. So yeah, I ain't gonna give too much away, but that's kind of what my book is gonna be talking about.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Codified. and passed down through generations of initiates who understood that to build a temple was to participate in the work of Ptah himself. The city's very layout reflected cosmic order, its streets and structures aligned with celestial movements, its workshops and studios producing art that was never mere decoration, but always sacred technology. When archaeologists excavate Memphis today,
ChatGPT, can I make money online with $0?
Yes, you can.
they find evidence of a sophistication that challenges every racist assumption about ancient Africa. They find precision that rivals modern engineering, artistic mastery that has never been surpassed, and written records that prove beyond doubt that African minds were contemplating the deepest questions of existence while other civilizations were still emerging from prehistory.
You know, this also reminds me, when my kids were in school, my son had to pick like an author for I think it was Black History Month, right? And he had to pick a author, and they started, and so he picked some Black authors that were considered the first poets, and these first poets came from like, I think we're in like 18th century or something like that. And you know, my ex, the funny thing was, she came up because she's African, and she was highly upset, man. She was like, she got up and protested during my son's speech. Like, he was so embarrassed, but she jumped up and she goes, "No, this is bullshit." And my son was like, "Mom," and he was like, "No, you don't understand. You make it seem like Black people started writing and doing poetry when they came to America. This is bullshit." Says, do you know how many poets and philosophers we had in our ancient history that you don't even know about? You don't even talk about it. I mean, all those white people turned around, were just looking like, what the hell is this lady talking about? And she was just going on and talking about all these poets and philosophers and ancient Kenya and stuff like that. And, you know, and he says, and then at the end, and then everybody stood up and clapped at the end when she got done talking.
Yeah, well, let the West tell it. Africans, they had nothing but huts.
Yeah, that's right. That's what she said. She says, if we listen to you fucking people, we would be nothing but little savages, right? We're just savages running around naked in the jungle, right? We don't know how to write. We don't know how to do science. We don't know how to do anything, right? Is that what we're supposed to learn here? Is that what you have my son teaching us? He says, I don't want to hear it no more. I don't only want to hear this. You know, she was so mad about that. I had to walk her out of there. I like grabbed her. It's like, we got to go. Come on, let's go.
When they talk about Africa, they're always talking about the parts of Africa that have been severely exploited, where there's extreme poverty. But they never talk about the thriving villages, communities, even cities that are functional and modern. They never show that part. They always show the part where it's a little skinny African running around with flies flying all on his eyeballs and shit. And that's supposed to be Africa, you know, all of
Every
Africa.
time I see that video, I'm always rubbing my eye like, dude, get that fly off your eyeball. Why do you let it like, move the come on, man. You can like, and then what are the people doing? They're sitting there filming them like, are y'all starving kids just to like put them on camera? Like, what the hell?
Right?
Yeah.
Damn.
Ptah represents the African gift to humanity, the understanding that we are not separate from creation, but active participants in it, that our thoughts shape reality, that our words carry power, that consciousness itself is the fundamental substance of the universe. This was not primitive superstition. This was advanced metaphysics, and it came from Africa. The Shabaka stone, inscribed during the 25th dynasty by the Nubian pharaohs who sought to preserve sacred memory from decay, reveals that Ptah created not through labor, but through consciousness. First by conceiving existence with the heart, then manifesting it through speech. This is not metaphor. It is metaphysics. The heart in Kemet was the seat of intelligence and moral reflection, not mere emotion. The tongue was not flesh. It was frequency, vibration, the mechanism through which the invisible becomes visible. Thus, Ptah represents the unity of mind and word, source and manifestation, thought and form. Every nature emerged through this process, meaning that even gods such as Atum, Ra, Sekhmet, and Het Heru originate from Ptah's thinking. In this
That's non-dualism. That's what it is. Non-dualism. It's the unification of mind and body, you know, and all of that, even the belief systems.
cosmology, sound is the engine of reality. Modern physics speaks similarly of frequency, resonance, wave formation, and harmonics. Concepts Kemet articulated thousands of years prior. Ptah is the ancestor of quantum theory, not as pseudoscience, but as ancestral memory. He is not merely a craftsman god. He is the blueprint behind all craft, the divine engineer who encoded consciousness into matter. His theology stands as the root of the belief that words shape worlds, a principle later echoed in Hebrew scripture, Christian doctrine, and Islamic cosmology, all filtered through African transmission. The Shabaka stone itself tells us that Ptah conceived the Netjeru in his heart and brought them forth through his tongue, that every divine principle, every cosmic force, every aspect of reality first existed as thought in the mind of Ptah before being spoken into manifestation. This
Yeah, it sounds a lot like Brahma, the Brahmin,
Yeah.
you know. It's
And
very similar.
we can see in cymatics that sound frequencies shape matter clearly. So
Hmm.
it's not something that is very far-fetched. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it reminds me of Michael Levin's work where he was talking about how the cells can hear and they adapt and change accordingly. It's really interesting. Like
Yeah.
it's intersecting all of that stuff together.
is creation
Yeah.
as an act of consciousness, not as physical construction. The stone records that Ptah's heart and tongue gave birth to the sight of the eyes, the hearing of the ears, the breathing of the nose, everything that was, everything that will be, all originated in the divine mind and was given form through the divine word.
Yeah, that is idealism. So I was going to jump to it, but go ahead and make some
Sounds
comments
a
because I'm
lot.
going to jump.
Sounds a lot like quantum entanglement, quantum tunneling, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. It really intersects. Hold on.
That true compassion sometimes requires fierce intervention. The priests and priestesses of Sekhmet underwent rigorous training, learning not only healing arts, but also the spiritual disciplines necessary to channel her power safely. They understood that working with such intense energy required balance, wisdom, and deep self-knowledge. To invoke Sekhmet without proper preparation was to invite destruction upon oneself. This teaching remains relevant. Power without wisdom is dangerous. Action without thought is reckless. Force without direction is chaos. Ptah and Sekhmet together teach us that creation is a balanced act requiring both contemplation and action, both vision and vigor, both dream and deed. Greek writers like Herodotus, Plato, and Pythagoras acknowledge that their philosophy came from Kemet. Yet modern academia separated Greece from Africa to uphold racial mythology. But the Temple of Ptah stands as witness. Geometry, metaphysics, ethics, and logic flourished in Africa first. The concept that thought shapes reality echoes through Stoicism, Gnosticism, Christian doctrine, Hermeticism, and Masonry, each a diluted descendant of African theology. To reclaim Ptah is to restore Africa as the intellectual mother of the world.
And all of those things mentioned, like stoicism, logic, um, epistemology, all that stuff are so valuable. They're valuable in everyday experience of life. And it's always promoted as just pure European creation. Like they're the ones who came up with this stuff. Like really? Like, I was telling you one time about a guy who was actually a philosopher in and he was also a professor at a European, I think in Oxford, maybe something like that. And he was saying that he wasn't allowed to talk about any sort of metaphysics or philosophy from other countries. The only thing that was allowed in the curriculum to teach the kids and the students were European classical people like Aristotle, the Greeks. But other than that, everybody had to be from Germany or, Europe, in some way. But you could only were allowed to speak about African, Indian, South American, and Asian philosophers and metaphysicians on special days. Like if you had like a special set aside time for that. But mainly we want to focus on, the Europeans,
Which is so
which,
ridiculous because a lot of people like Carl Jung, for example, they all traveled somewhere in the Middle East and then came back with these philosophies and integrated it into Western society and created Western language around it. But they all came back with concepts from somewhere else and brought it back to the West, and that's a fact. And it's like,
hmm
what is the point of that? What's the fucking point?
I think it's because they just don't like people that are brown.
Girl, don't
That's the problem. The problem isn't what they're saying. The problem is that they're the wrong color. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but that might be what's really going on. It might just be racism and, it's just superiority complex.
Well, it's not really about color at all. It's about, man, this girl, she slammed this door again. Shit. Um, I had just told her. She just be flying through that door, man. Anyway,
hmm
I think it's more about you have that goes back into my book I'm writing. I don't want to give too much away though. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
basically about how some humans originally lived in balance and harmony with nature, and then how some humans kind of went into a different direction.
hmm
And it's kind of about the first split, right? And the builders, I will call them, um, the builders who believe that they are a superior race and everyone else is pretty much um, from the lineage of Cain. That's actually
hmm
very ass backwards. And these builders believe that everything is about control. So they want to basically control the narrative of what
mm.
reality is, how it functions. And so that way they keep control over it. They remain the gatekeepers. It has nothing to do with color, skin color. It's all about mindset.
Yeah, they had a movie about that called The Book of Elijah with Denzel Washington. They had that same theme, but it was kind of like a futuristic one, where in the future
Book
we
of
suffer
Eli.
the yeah, Eli, that's what it was. Yeah. And yeah, it was great. It was where someone tried
The
to get a
guy was
hold
hot.
of a holy, yeah, the Bible or whatever, to control the
Yeah, the
masses,
guy was hot. Yeah. He didn't believe in the Bible. He knew he was like, I don't believe in that shit. But guess what? The people do, and I can control them with it. And that was his
hmm
whole purpose of trying to get his hands on the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty good. Anyways, let's get back to it just a little bit, a few more minutes on this, and then we'll jump to the other side of the argument.
Herodotus wrote explicitly that he learned from Egyptian priests that Greek religion derived from African sources, that the gods worshipped in Greece were Egyptian in origin. Plato spent 13 years studying in Kemet, his famous theory of forms, the concept that material reality reflects a higher realm of perfect ideals, is a direct echo of Ptah's theology, that physical forms manifest from divine thought. Pythagoras studied in Memphis for over 20 years. The mathematical principles he claimed as his own discoveries were already ancient when he learned them from African priests. The Pythagorean concept of cosmic harmony through mathematics, of the music of the spheres, of number as the fundamental nature of reality. All this was taught in the temples of Ptah centuries before any Greek philosopher was born. Yet modern education teaches these ideas as if they sprang fully formed from Greek minds, as if Africa contributed nothing to human intellectual development, as if the continent that birthed humanity made no contribution to human thought. This is not accidental ignorance, but deliberate erasure. The European Enlightenment needed to position itself as the origin of reason, logic, and philosophy, to acknowledge that these traditions originated in Africa, that they were developed by Black civilizations, would have undermined the entire edifice of white supremacy upon which colonialism and slavery rested.
Yeah. So I just wanted to establish that from the video, learn a little bit about the Ptah, and then also how they influence Western thought. So that's going to kind of lead right into the next part, because there's a lot of movement in this country, especially with Christian nationalism, that looks at that as a threat. They're back at it. They're going to look at, just like it was just explained in that video, the colonizers, the Enlightenment, the Europeans, they wanted to foster this idea that it was the white people or the Europeans that actually came up with all that stuff. And they deny Black people had any hand in any of those things. And so it looks like it's back at it again, but just under a different name that they call paganism. And so I kind of wanted to go into this too, because this is kind of crazy. And this kind of shows you the difference between a non-dualist approach to life and a very dualistic approach to life, inclusion versus exclusion. And it's really sad, and it's kind of crazy. I'm just going to let you guys look at it. I'm going to play the video. And this is Frank Turek. This is from Cross-Examined, his channel. And Frank Turek is a popular apologist, Christian apologist. And he's got Lucas Miles on here, who is an author about paganism and how to escape paganism. Anyways.
What is the name of your church in South Bend, so you can know?
Yeah, so it's called Influence Church. There's no I in the front. It's just a capital N. And we have really...
I think that's funny. He calls it Influence Church, and yet he's fighting against the influence, the right of people to influence against the culture. Like, what a hypocrite. Like, it's okay for Christians to do influence. Oh, that's okay.
Exploded with this groundswell of growth. Since Charlie's assassination, I put a 45-foot banner of Charlie Kirk on the outside of the building for the first month or so. And we went from about 250 people or so to now over 500 that are attending on a regular basis. It's been quite remarkable to see this revival, firsthand, here in a rather blue area in a red state.
Yeah, you're right up there near Notre Dame, are you not?
Yeah, we had the regime of Mayor Pete for quite some time in our area. So yeah, I'm about 10 minutes to campus.
Wow. Well, let's talk about paganism. That's kind of a word we don't use much anymore. Let's define our terms, Lucas. What is it? What is paganism?
So paganism on a broad stroke level, I think it'd be fair to say, is any sort of religious practice or path that is trying to look for a connection to the divine outside of the God of the Bible. I think more specifically, people think of it typically in terms of things like Wicca, occult, witchcraft, Druidism, shamanism, sort of these alternative pathways outside of the primary major religions that people.
So yeah, so this is making Christianity essentially the main religion. It's the real religion. Um, yeah. So that's just kind of weird that it's like there's a free market of ideas, just like there's a free market, capitalism, supply and demand. If people want to include alternative views, why not? What's wrong with that? You know? And exit music, you say no writing before 3,500 BC, Homo sapiens around. Okay, fine, but the Ptah is written language, and it was written before the Greeks. That was the whole point. I don't know if you saw the beginning of the video, but it references those writings. It references the archaeology that go into that. The Bible wasn't the first writing. The first writing didn't come from the Hebrews. Okay, there was actually cultures before that, and before the Greeks, and before the Europeans. If you didn't believe that, the Ptah, they had written word. That's what we were talking about. Anyways, we're going to continue. And by the way, we're going to open up the stage. So if you want to come on and we can discuss, we'd love to do that. By the way, X Music. And anybody else who wants to join the platform will be able to do it. But I'm going to let the video roll.
Will typically think about, such as Christianity, Judaism, Islam, etc. I could make a pretty strong case that Islam is actually a pagan faith, but I don't deal with that quite as much in this book as I do some of these other pathways. And what we're seeing, and you kind of alluded to this in your intro, is that these ancient esoteric beliefs are getting incorporated into a Marxist substructure, and we're seeing this kind of blending that's happening. And I think ultimately that's leading to this pagan threat that we're talking about.
Well, let's deal with that for just a second. The Marxist substructure, this oppressor, oppressed sort of worldview that people have, which I think has polluted enough minds, even the mind of Charlie's alleged killer, to think that anybody who disagreed with him is automatically an oppressor and must die. Where does this come from, this oppressor, oppressed sort of binary that these people put on individuals in society?
I think this is really ironic, being that Christians feel so oppressed, and they're the ones who are persecuted. And then, in fact, they are now the dominant in the culture. But before that, Christians were, not that. In other words, what's often missing today in this whole pagan threat narrative is historical memory. You know what I mean? Like, Christianity itself began as a disruptive counter worldview. In the ancient world, Christians were accused of being godless, anti-family, socially dangerous, because they rejected the God that supposedly held society together. I mean, does this sound familiar? When Christianity later gained power, it didn't simply coexist with earlier pagan and philosophical systems. It replaced it altogether. Temples were shut down. Indigenous traditions were demonized, just like now. And alternative cosmologies were labeled false or dangerous, just like now. That wasn't pluralism. It was worldview secession. So when modern Christians like these guys kind of frame non-biblical worldviews as an existential threat, they're repeating the very logic that was once worked for Christianity, only now from the position of cultural authority. So the real question isn't whether belief systems compete. They always have. The question is whether truth is discovered through dialogue and inclusion, or is it enforced through exclusion once the power is secured, right? That's crazy,
Yeah, I think that, obviously we could get way into the weeds and talk about, Marx's kind of infatuation with a lot of Hegel's ideas and how those shaped, where he went. At a basic framework, it's what you described. There's Marxism has within it always an oppressor and oppressed. It comes from Hegel's master-slave dialectic. And so for Marx, that was the bourgeoisie versus the proletariat, bourgeoisie being the oppressors, the proletariat being the oppressed, and that it was necessary in order to bring about kind of this socialist utopia that is talked about so much in Marxism, that you have to have the oppressed rise up and basically take over and win, dominance over the oppressed. And so, but Marxism is, not really satisfied with that. That's the proletariat and the bourgeoisie was very niche into Marx's, geography and period in time. It's expanded since then, and for liberation theologians, it was the rich versus poor. For Black liberation theology, which is a mixture of Christianity and Marxism, it was the Black Jesus versus the white Jesus. It was the oppressor versus the oppressed. You have things like, I just saw a video today on basically critical fat theory, that skinny people are oppressing people who are, have a few extra pounds on them, and they are, basically, collaborating together to make sure that airplane seats won't fit them.
But, I think what he's trying to do here is just make it seem like he's trying to really create the hard divide, like people of other faiths other than Christianity are your enemy, and they seek to control you and tell you how to live, create fear. And that's what this dualistic sort of thinking does, X Music says there we're talking about blue and red states. Ronald Reagan, as someone into astrology, was the first person to plan a marketing campaign to make more Christians Republican. His people designed it, right? He's such a bullshitter. Uprisings are simply cause and effect. That's what Karl Marx was saying, right? And it really has nothing to do with, religion. They like to create these sort of false dichotomies, and they like to paint people with these brushes. Like, you can be a non-dualist, pagan, whatever you want to call it, non-Christian, and you can be against communism. You can be a Democrat or a Republican. It's just like being an atheist. You can be an atheist. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're a Democrat or a Republican or a liberal or a conservative or whatever. It's just another way to sort of galvanize people, and it's just really interesting how this tactic is played out here on this video.
They're trying to oppress them and these sorts of things. We have critical queer theory, that it is, the straight people are oppressing those who are of an LGBT, perspective.
How dare we stop oppression, right? How dare we be against oppressing other people? Because that would be like something Christ would do, right? Isn't Jesus all about inclusiveness, forgiveness? Isn't he about communism in a way? If someone asks for your shirt, give them also your pants or whatever. Like, you should give up all of your belongings and follow me if you want to be perfect. So that was the standard. The standard was giving up everything in life for your fellow man, for the poor, for the needy. But these kind of Christians seem to have missed the memo, seems like.
And so this is branched out into any time that you can get, people to divide over some sort of issue, that you're going to have one that's seen as the oppressor and one that's seen as the oppressed.
Oh, shut the fuck up. You guys are the ones who are divisive here. Non-dualism is inclusionary. It's not about division by definition. This Christian dualism, this creation distinction, which spills over into class and racism and things like that, that's what you guys are all about.
And I think this is driving the division that we see in our society, and it's intentional, because if you can divide society in these terms, what you can do is you can get all these subgroups that see themselves as the minorities or the oppressed. You can get them to kind of band together and then to take over the dominant position. So
like Christians did, like what you guys are just wanting to keep your position. I think it's rather hypocritical. It's like, yeah, we shouldn't divide if it means that people leave the faith, our faith, and specifically, everyone should be undivided, meaning everyone should be Christians, right? That's the whole idea.
In this case, Christianity has been the dominant worldview in this nation really since our founding. And so now what we're seeing is the Marxists, the pagans, and the LGBT all working together to try to overthrow that.
And we're going to see the implications of that right after the break with my guest, Lucas Miles, his brand new book, Pagan Threat, forward by Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk. Wonder what does Charlie Kirk have to do with all this? But I think it's because he said something about Charlie Kirk warned about this kind of stuff. What do you think, Sophia, about these geniuses over here on the Christian geniuses?
Well, first of all, they are the most divisive sacks of shit I've ever seen, and I can't stand them. They are the ones who say that everything other than their own belief system is bad or wrong, and if that's not divisive, I don't know what is. I wanted to bring up an example of how they are. Yesterday we went to the grocery store, and my son went in because I've been under the weather. I've been a little bit sick, and I didn't feel like going in there. So he went in there, and this preacher that was out on the corner with his microphone and shit, preaching the gospel, he handed him a candy cane, right? And a little piece of paper with like a Christmas tree and shit on it. And my son got in the car and he was like, "Mom, I don't know if I should read this because it's Christian." And I said, it's probably just some bullshit Bible scripture or some shit. So I said, "Let me see." So I fucking read that shit, and it said, "Look at your candy cane. What color do you see in the candy cane? You see the color red, and that is the color of the blood that was sacrificed." And I'm like, "Really, motherfucker? You gonna have a little kid thinking about spilling blood and blood sacrifice? Like, what? And y'all call that fucking normal? No wonder people don't want to have a part of that shit, man. Get that shit away from me."
Yeah, this is so.
My son was like, I knew I shouldn't have read that, Mom. I'm glad I gave it to you first. He don't want to read that. He don't want to read that shit.
Yeah. That's so fucked up. X Music says Christian nationalism actually goes against New Testament instructions for Christians. 1 Corinthians tells Christians to judge those within the church, and God just those outside the church. Exactly. Yeah, judge. Yeah, I understand. That's exactly right.
They go against a lot of shit. Everything in there is a contradiction because technically they shouldn't even celebrate Christmas.
Well, if you want consistency, don't look for religion. Don't look into religion if you want consistency. That's not where you're going to find that shit. That's what we were talking about before. Yeah.
That's another thing about non-duality. You know, non-duality can come in many types of, you can express it in many different ways, but it always comes back to the same thing, that we're all in this together. It's all about unity. It's just more practical, and it never really changes. It's always the same. It doesn't matter whether you look at it from a Buddhist standpoint or ancient Chemeticism or modern idealism. You know, non-duality is where it's at because it brings everybody together. It can bring us all on the same frequency, on the same wavelength. It's it's religion and doctrine, institutionalized religion that's divisive as hell. It's more political than anything. And we already know politics ain't nothing but division.
The only reason it's not intuitive is because of modern language. Language is very dualistic. And so that makes things like non-dualism seem very contradictory. But when you dig deep into it, you start to see that non-dualism is very coherent, much more coherent
Yeah,
than these dualistic views, worldviews and stuff, you know?
that's right. And
It's
that's
just
what the
that,
future is all about. It's about coherence.
yeah, coherence. It's just that our language is just, it's just reflecting that dualism. So it becomes very culturally ingrained, and it becomes unintuitive to a lot of people. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of, can be hard to talk to with some people that are so ingrained in the culture, you know?
On, and I think this is a pretty broad stroke idea that we see, whether it's in witchcraft or Wiccan or shamanism or something like that, is the idea that everything is sacred. And this is why, when I say pagan threat, the threat is not individual pagans. The threat is an intentional supplanting of the Christian worldview to replace it with a dominant pagan worldview so that Marxist ideas can be accepted. Christianity.
Is that what you want to do? You want to promote
Oh,
Marxist
fuck that.
ideas?
Fuck that
That's
guy.
really what you're trying to do? That's what
No,
mysticism is about?
what he said, yeah, what he's saying is that everything's not sacred. We are the builders. We are the white supreme fucking whatever.
Yeah.
Like we'll see about that when you're naturally not selected in the future.
Yeah, we see where things are going.
Marxism are antithetical to each other, but if you can introduce this pagan worldview as the dominant worldview, now Marxism doesn't have the same, there's not the same rough edges on it, because moralistically paganism is much more pliable and flexible to be able to embrace ideas such as killing your child and calling that healthcare. So when it comes to abortion,
what the fuck?
Hold on.
What did he say?
Hold on. I could have sworn their Bible starts with a story where a guy is asked to sacrifice his son for an imaginary God, right? I could have sworn there was passages in the Bible where this God was dashing babies against a rock, right? Oh, I could have sworn there was a time in the Bible where God killed all the firstborn and shit and told people to mark their homes so their firstborn won't be slaughtered by Jehovah. I mean, I'm just saying, like, who the fuck is a baby killer here? Other than Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
Isn't there a part in the Bible where it says that, if you want to know if your wife's faithful, have her drink this special potion, because if she does so, it'll kill the baby, and that'll be her punishment. Like, isn't that abortion? Like, it's okay?
Yeah, that's 100% abortion. Fucktard.
Yeah, 100%. Oh my God, the hypocrisy is off the chains here.
In fact, I quote there's a Native American activist, kind of Marxist author that I quote in the book, and they refer to both birth and abortion as both being sacred, and that you see the sacredness in each of these things, and that it's really, we either get to choose life or we choose death. And, Scripture talks about that, condemning the choosing of death. But pagans talk about that as in both are beautiful and both have the opportunity to participate with the divine. It's a failure to understand the value of human life. And when you see life and death as the same, this is that might sound.
Oh, shut the fuck up. What about Isaiah 45:7? I am the light, I am the dark. I create evil and the good. I am the Lord. Come on, man. Like, what about God who kills so many people in his name, like you just mentioned, to go out and kill the infants, the cattle, the women, except for the virgins? You can keep those for yourselves.
Well, the thing about it, this dumb mother, this asshole, he's just spewing propaganda because no one's really running around trying to just abort their babies, right? It's supposed to be an option that's between you and your fucking doctor. Of course, there's going to be people who abuse that or handle it in the wrong way, but that's with anything. And one of the main reasons that happens anyway is because of corrupt crony capitalism. That's why everything's turned into fucking for profit in this, Western society. So it's the companies that benefit off of it, and it has nothing to do with the individual. Individuals everybody's gonna fuck up somewhere. It's not like we're running around saying, oh yeah, we want to abort our babies and just rip them out of our womb every day. No, but that option needs to be there because there are real reasons why a person would need to do that, right? And
Exactly.
That's between you and whoever the fuck you believe in. That's not for you to decide, my nigga.
Right. And hey, Nell, how you doing, man?
Hey, Nell.
Glad you're here. Hey, and you just missed where the Christians were talking about how bad it is that those damn pagans and non-dualists and mystics are for LGBTQ because they think experiences of people are so valid, and you shouldn't see them as sacred. Not everything is sacred.
and that's the thing, how he just rephrased that and paraphrased it and said they call it all beautiful. No, there's a difference between sacred and beautiful. When you see something as sacred, that means you're doing it in a way where you're respecting life, meaning you're not just going to abort just because you fucking feel like it. You're going to do it because you're doing it for a sacred reason. Basically, the fetus isn't viable, or the mother could die in the process, or whatever the fucking reason may be. In other words, you don't just do it for the hell of it. That's why it's to be treated as something sacred. But the truth remains that life and death simultaneously exist. They are both parts of our reality. And so instead of living in denial of that, we try to accept death as a part of life, right? There is a very, very thin line between the two. And sacred means respect. It doesn't mean abort whenever you feel like it for any old reason. So when he says, oh, they say it's just as beautiful as everything else, he just literally made that shit up.
Oh, of course. That's what they do.
Great on the Lion King is the circle of life, but that is not a moral, biblical, ethical worldview at any level.
So Marxism is known as atheistic. Are you saying if you combine it with certain mystical pagan practices, it might be easier to swallow for people that are religiously oriented?
Yeah, so if we think about the Hegelian dialectic, and if we need to, continue this, we can, but you have thesis plus antithesis equals synthesis. That's kind of the equation. So you take the dominant idea, which would be, let's say something like capitalism in after the war. Then you're going to put what the opposite of that, the antithesis, which might be, socialism. And then on the other side, you get democratic socialism that we're seeing pushed today. It's going to take the framework of capitalism and some of the language, but the content, the directives from that antithesis being socialism. So democratic socialism is really just socialism trying to pretend like it's free market. And so the same thing with faith. So you have Christianity being that thesis, that dominant worldview. Then you're going to take the opposite of that, which is Marxism, kind of this anti-God, anti-Christ, godless perspective theory. And then on the other side of that, you're going to get a religious, zealous Marxism or religious fundamentalist Marxism. It takes the language of Christianity, so it likes the ideas such as justice or injustice. It likes the ideas of compassion. It likes the ideas of mercy. It can leverage those to push things like open borders or something like that. But and tolerance, it'll steal all these things, package them in a way that it looks spiritual, it looks religious, but it's still peddling that same anti-God framework.
Yeah, that's very interesting because Satan comes as an angel of light. He's going to take things that we like and think are good and stuff those words with different meanings in different formats.
It's hard.
So how is that being, or how is this kind of...
The Satan in me is about to throw up.
Yeah. That's just the devil in you.
Yeah.
That's just the devil in you. You know, you just want to push that Marxist evilness.
So gross. Oh my God. Makes my skin
Yeah,
crawl. I can't
this is
listen.
crazy, man.
I can't listen to these ass hats.
I know I'm trying to struggle to get through just a few more minutes.
Synthesis between, say, Christianity and Marxism, which is really more Marxism than Christianity, although it uses some of the same words. How is that being pushed on young people right now, Lucas?
So yeah, we're seeing it both in and out of the church. You know, after the death of Charlie, we saw instant revival across the country. It wasn't funded. Nobody stood up and said, let's have a revival, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody threw millions of dollars at that initially to make it happen. Just all of a sudden that weekend, you know, tons of people showed up to church who don't normally. Tons of people bought Bibles that don't normally do that. And there was just a natural inclination and response of the heart to the Lord. We're not seeing that with paganism. We had people like, you know, G.K. Chesterton who said paganism was dead, but yet we see it revived. And how did it get revived? It got revived because it was funded. It got revived because it was pushed. You start looking at even like, you know, kids' cartoons or movies, and the ideas of witchcraft, of Wiccan, of things like occultic practices. How many films are pushing this? They have been peddling this for a really long time, funding this, pushing this on children. And they use that kind of, you know, it's known as the Mott and Bailey fallacy, where you have this area that is, you know, Mott and Bailey was an old fortified structure where it had like a village down at the bottom, and then this fortified kind of hill on the back side of it. If the villagers were attacked, they could retreat into this fortified area. And so this is a fallacy that people use. So you do something like, say, the mutilation of a child with transgender surgeries, and then you're going to retreat as soon as somebody accuses you, and you're going to call that gender affirming care. They're using this Mott and Bailey back and forth, and that's just one of many ways they're doing this.
Yeah, fuck him.
That is just political rhetoric, man, and I can't stand it. I can't stand it. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, man, and you know, as far as the funding, I think that the funding is always going to go along with what's already circulating in the society. You can't make money unless there's a demand for it to begin with. And yeah,
Right.
It's calling what about circumcision? Isn't that mutilation? You know, it's like they're such hypocrites,
Right.
man. They're such hypocrites. But yeah, we're going to open up the stage if somebody wants to jump on and add to the conversation, any ideas to talk about a lot of this stuff, because we just saw a contrast from ancient African paganism, or, you know, idealism. Really, it was just spiritual understanding or metaphysical understanding, which was more about non-duality, inclusiveness, logic, reason, stoicism, things like that influenced modern thought, especially like through the Greeks and the Europeans as well. And then it turned out that the Christianity was now the dominant religious understanding, and it kind of borrowed from those ideas to go all the way back to that, probably much earlier, but that's just one example that I brought up here, the Ptah, that Sophia turned me on to today. And and then we see what it is now with Christianity, at least with this Christian nationalism. Now, I know a lot of Christians may not agree with this sort of attitude or whatever. I don't know. But I do know that there's, even with a lot of Black people, there's the Pan-Africanism, which sort of supports that kind of shit in a way, if you think about it, because they deny their history. You know, they deny, you know, those sort of fundamental, you know, ideas on non-dualism and things like that. And they've opted out for what the colonizers had introduced, which is this Christianity bullshit, this dualistic bullshit. And that's where all this shit comes from, man.
Yes, and that all that stuff came way later. And what I really think is cool about the Ptah, however you say it, ontology, is that it's the first known ontology that sounds a lot like modern day idealism. And I wanted to read something about how Michael Levin's work today points to that being more true than Christianity or whatever, you know.
Sure.
Anyway, in Michael Levin's work, morphospace is a space of possible anatomical forms that a biological system can occupy. Key properties: it is non-local, it constrains outcomes before material assembly, cells navigated using bioelectric states, it encodes targets, not just rules. Crucially, morphospace is informational, not material. Okay. The hidden assumption in Levin's model. Levin avoids metaphysics, right? But his data forces this structure. Cells have memory of form. Regeneration corrects towards a target. Injury does not reset the plan. Local chemistry alone cannot explain global repair. And we saw that in his experiment where he cut off the heads of the what are they called, Scott? The little organisms.
The anthrobots or the tetrabots?
No. When the little organisms, they grew back heads.
Oh yeah, the flatworm. Yeah, the flatworms. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that one. So that's what his work shows, right? So morphospace behaves like a field of intention, a goal landscape, a constraint on matter, and that's already very close to consciousness, just not named as such. So just because he doesn't say consciousness and he doesn't speak in metaphysical terms, his work is pretty much suggesting that, or suggesting so much. And as far as how it coincides with my own model, the LFM model, in LFM, consciousness equals self-aware frequency field. It contains possible states before instantiation. In Levin, morphospace equals space of viable forms. See? It contains possible anatomical outcomes. They are functionally equivalent spaces. One is generalized and one is biological. Frequency is like saying bioelectric states, right? In LFM, frequency modulates energy and organization. Stable frequencies equal stable forms. In Levin's work, bioelectric gradients guide development. Stable voltage patterns equal stable anatomy. So frequency equals bioelectric patterns, different language, same causal role. And then we have observation in my model, which is target selection, the equation of E equals M times O squared, observation squared. In Levin's terms, that would translate to observation corresponds to system level evaluation. Cells assess whether current state matches target morphology. Deviations trigger corrective action. Observation is not human only, it is embedded assessment. Matter equals execution layer in both. Matter is responsive, cells are actuators, not originators. Chemistry executes a plan, it does not invent. Matter is an interface, not the source. So rewriting Levin in LFM language, if we were to do that, right, it would sound like this. Levin says tissues are competent to pursue anatomical goals, and my LFM translation to that would be matter entrained in a conscious frequency field will reorganize to minimize deviation from its resident target. Same claim, One is biological and the other one is ontological. So my model is ontological. Why this avoids pseudoscience accusations? I am not saying that cells are mystical. I'm not saying everything is conscious in a naive way. What I'm saying is pattern selection precedes material realization, just like we said, talked about Ptah, right? Frequency fields encode constraints, and consciousness equals the space of possible forms plus evaluative capacity. That is fully consistent with Levin's empirical results. So the key insight here is, don't miss this, guys. Levin's morphospace has no ontological grounding in his papers. He uses it instrumentally. My elephant model provides that grounding. Morphospace is a localized projection of a more general conscious frequency field. Biology is one domain where this becomes measurable. So that's where my hierarchy of consciousness comes in at, which I haven't rolled out yet, but I will soon if I ever get the damn chance. And that's just closing a conceptual gap, right? And that's pretty much what I wanted to read, just to show you guys how everything in science is largely now pointing in the direction of consciousness being primordial, and that's what ancient people seemed to believe or perceive.
And I wanted to add to that because something I had been thinking about, the word consciousness. I'd really been trying to think about the word consciousness and trying to think, what do people mean by it? What does it really mean? And it goes along with what Examusic just said here. He says, I'm not familiar with all this, but I am a naturalist, as we are. And he says, I believe language gave us the ability to create these concepts in the world. And that's exactly what we were going over with the Ptah. They say the same thing, that language is what creates the concepts in the worlds. But, the thing about language is that language is a tool. It's a human, it's descriptors, right? And the thing about experience and consciousness, what we call consciousness is what's ineffable. In other words, we can't really put it into words exactly. And so when we say things like consciousness, experience, things like that, these are just words to point to something that we may not really be using correctly all the time. So like I was thinking, when you even think about the word consciousness, like the whole word ness, when you say I'm full of gladness, like there's a measure of being glad, that you're talking about. And when you say consciousness, like there's a measure of this conscious. And it kind of doesn't make sense in a way, because it kind of like breaks down. Because really language, like you say, is a pointer, it's descriptive. But what we're describing is just an arising. That's all it is. It's an arising. It's not something we can really point to and say, this is consciousness, and this has less consciousness, and this has more consciousness. Like I think there's just this experience, what we call experience. Just something I'm thinking about. I don't know. I'm just trying to think.
I would sort of agree. I would say that, consciousness in its entirety absolutely cannot be measured. We already know that. That would be absurd to think that we could. But I do think that we can measure glimpses of it, small portions of it, such as brain waves or brain states. And the reason why I say that is, if the brain is an interface through which consciousness expresses itself, then brain waves, brain states, anything that's expressed physically would be a reflection or expression of consciousness. So we could say, yeah, we can measure that. And that's still a small portion, a small fractal of what consciousness is. But can we measure it in its entirety? Hell no. And we just...
Well, no, because it's the thing that does the measuring. It's like the scale trying to measure itself. It's like, it's kind of impossible. It's like,
Right.
you know, the knife can't cut itself. It's the tool. It's the interface, like you say. It's what we view the world out of, and that's where language comes in as our best kind of tool to do that. Like X Music says, in language, there's also no line preventing us from creating words for things that don't exist. And what does that even mean, to exist? You know, like you say nothing, and you know how a lot of people say, well, you know, the world couldn't come from nothing. And it could just be a conceptual limitation. It could just be a limitation of our language, you know? Like there's a lot of things that, like, what is consciousness? Is consciousness a thing? Is consciousness a thing that exists? When you think exists means external persistence. But consciousness is also something that you know?
It also depends on how you it also depends on how you define nothing, right? If I say, like I always ask this question, I believe I asked Dave last time, if the potential of you existing existed before you existed, can we say there was nothing or potential?
Right.
So it just all depends on how you would define nothing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, remember when Objective Ethics was asking us, and he said, you know, like you talk a lot about paraconsistent logic. He says, but I've also heard you guys say that things come from potential. They don't come from nothing. But actually, if you think about it, nothing has no constraints on it, because there's not even potential for laws. There's nothing like that. So nothing collapses into everything because there's nothing there to constrain it. And I was telling him, well, that's what potential is. That's unlimited potential. So you're just saying that nothing, what you're calling nothing, is this unlimited potential, this unconstrained. So even that is a something, right? Depending on how we talk about it. So I'm like, but at the same time, we're using the language of nothing. So I get it. Language is tricky, you know. It's like X Music just says, colloquially, we use nothing to be not much. What you thinking about nothing? Not literally true. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so it's ineffable. You know, the experience of nothing, of something, even any kind of experience or non-experience is not captured in language. Never. It can't be. It cannot be. You know, actually what we call consciousness is actually the knowing itself.
Right.
Yeah, it's the barriers. What I always say is that the language, it's always a language thing, and language comes out of culture, and culture and language, all of that stuff comes out of the minds of humans. And we know human minds are evolving, they're changing, they're limited. It's limited, and it's always learning, it's growing, it's expanding. And that's the only thing I can say about this thing we call consciousness, is that it seeks to expand. It's always trying to grow outwards, you know, and learn more, to experience more and more, because that's what it does. That's the work of experience, you know.
It evolves, and I believe that it's directly tied into evolution, you know.
Yeah, and it's natural, you know, and that's what this word natural means. Natural is nature. It's like it's everything we understand, you know, within our interface, you know, of the mind. We perceive an external world that we interact with, and we have consequences from. And this is the natural world, right? And so even some of the things we might call supernatural end up being just more natural stuff. Once we understand that it exists, now it's just included into the natural world, right? So, yeah, I agree. I'm a naturalist. I believe in nature, and I believe consciousness, primordial consciousness, fundamental consciousness, whatever you want to call it, whatever this field of potential for subjective experiences of the world are, It's all natural stuff. It's not supernatural. Like those sort of terms, I think are kind of like concept stoppers or conversation stoppers. Like they make people think of, they're like taboo terms. They're kind of like, well, when you start talking about, things that I don't understand, we're going to put that in this bucket called supernatural. And those sort of things are off limits. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about consciousness. We don't talk about, fields of potential or whatever. Those are weird terms that aren't part of my experience. And so these are just off limits to talk about, They're metaphysics. And people think when you talk about metaphysics, you're talking about fairies and leprechauns.
Yeah, but it's really the Christians who are talking about fairies and leprechauns, and they get on my nerves because they always misframe things. And when we're talking about things like Ptah, right? We're not talking about a God figure. We're talking about a force of nature. We're talking about an ontological architecture, not some sky god, right? That's what Christians did. They turned it into this Sky Daddy cartoon, and it's like, they get on my freaking nerves. Oh, you're worshiping nature, like you're all
you're worshiping shit that don't exist.
You're worshiping a tree, and I'm like, no, we're not worshiping a tree. We just believe that consciousness is the true nature of reality, and that everything comes forth from consciousness. In other words, imagine a frequency which is physical, like in cymatics, we see sound frequencies literally shaping matter, right? We see that. Like, have y'all ever seen that where you change the frequency and then the sand or the whatever they use, the salt, they just
yeah. Oh yeah, the cymatics, the sound. Before we go on, let me just say, Exit Music says, loving your show and subscribing. Thank you, man, so much for that. Like to learn more about what you guys are talking about, but got to run some errands on this sunny Saturday. See y'all. Thank you so much, man. And if you're new to the show, like and subscribe. Anybody else who's out there that likes this kind of content, we're trying to grow. So please do. But please continue, Sophia. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine. I don't know. I was ranting again.
Well, here's a question I have for you. Because this Christian guy started talking about the whole abortion thing and everything like that. Now, there's this example. And tell me if you think this lady's wrong. This is the first example. And then we're going to go to a second one that I thought about. So the first one, there's actually this lady. She wanted to have a child. Now, this lady, she loves attention. She loves getting attention any way she can, whether it's from men, women, whatever. She loves attention, right? So what she did is she noticed her sisters, her cousins had babies. And they were getting so much attention from the family, like showered with gifts and, oh, you got a baby, blah, blah, blah. So because she loves attention, she decided she wanted to have a baby. But she has this mindset, she said, that she doesn't want just any attention. She always wants to have more. She's competitive about her attention. She wants more attention than other people. So what she wanted to do was not just have a baby. She wanted her child to be handicapped.
Oh.
So she took a pill, some kind of pill that would handicap her baby. And when the baby was born, it was handicapped. It had like disabilities. And so the question is, do you think she was wrong? Do you think did she do something wrong in that first? And I'm gonna give you a second example, but go ahead on that one.
I would say that the bitch is obviously mentally ill, and that's what's called Munchausen by proxy, I believe. So it's a form of narcissism, and she just is, somebody like that is severely mentally ill. That's just all there's to it. would it be right, fall into the category of right or wrong? Well, I would say it's in the category of mental illness.
I tend to think it was wrong because she purposely handicapped somebody who otherwise wouldn't have been handicapped.
Right, but she's mentally ill, and that's why she made such a
Right.
So
yeah, it's kind of weird, but yeah.
She was definitely mentally ill to think that way. And yeah, I mean, of course it's wrong, but that's kind of the problem when you're mentally ill. You do fucked up shit, you know.
But then let's say this, here's an example, and this kind of goes to what the Christians were saying today about abortion and all of that. So let's say a lady got pregnant. She didn't want attention. She just wanted a healthy child, right? But the child was going to be handicapped. They found out the child would be disabled. And being that that's the case, would it be wrong for her to bring the child in the world knowing that that child would be handicapped? Now, the only difference between the two examples is one made the child disabled on purpose. And let's pretend like in this thought experiment, pretend like the lady didn't have a mental disease. She just did it because she wanted to have a disabled. So between the two people, is there one that's right and one that's wrong?
Well, that one I would say is a little bit nuanced because there are handicaps that allow you to still live a full, happy life, right? It would just depend on, I guess it would just depend on how severe the handicap would be. And if doctors can tell beforehand, and it's a very debilitating type of, handicap, then it would probably be better to abort. Because, like, why would you want to subject any kind of person or human being to that kind of life? Like, what if they're like Stephen Hawkins and tied to the fucking bed for the rest of their life? I'm pretty sure.
Right.
That would be
but what if, now to go further with the thought experiment, the second child grows up and the child says, because this was a real life situation as I researched this shit, there was this political person that was out there saying, abortion can be legitimate because what about children, are going to be handicapped and disabled, and why would you bring people in the world in that condition? And then this handicapped person came out and said, well, I'm handicapped and I'm glad my mother didn't have an abortion. I'm glad I'm alive. I'm glad that didn't happen to me. So who are you to sit there and say that my mom should have had an abortion? Because I wouldn't have been alive if she would have listened to somebody like you.
Well, the main thing I can say about this whole thing is none of your fucking business, honestly. Because
right.
At the end of the day, people are going to do what the fuck they're going to do for themselves. You can't run around and be the universal police. You can't police every damn thing. You can't be in control of every damn thing. Because if we get rid of institutions that allow abortion, well, you're going to have motherfuckers sticking coat hangers up themselves or drinking shit. People are still going to abort. You can't control every fucking thing.
That's
so why
right.
That's not right. And mind your fucking business.
Because in the first example I gave, as we expand on in that situation that I really talked about, that child grew up and committed suicide because it was disabled. It knew his mother did that on purpose, and he felt victimized and condemned to a life of being in a wheelchair and a lot of shit that he was going through. And so he just ended his life. So who are we to judge is my whole point. It's like you were just saying, who are you to judge? It's like, let fucking people make their own decisions. It is sacred. and it's between you and whatever your beliefs are, and it's you, maybe it's between you and your husband or you and your God or whatever, like, why does it have to be a Christian apologist that decides what's supposed to happen in your life? Yeah.
Like, and that's not to say that there shouldn't be any kind of law and order, obviously, right? But at the same time, when it comes to personal decisions like that, that's not anybody's fucking business. That's between you and your fucking doctor. Now, I don't feel like it's okay to use abortion as contraceptive, obviously, because if you continue to use that, if you abort so many times, it can definitely be harmful to your own body. So I wouldn't encourage that, right? But at the same time, I mean, if a woman wants to do that to her own body and have like 13 abortions, because I met a chick like that, she kept getting pregnant every time she got drunk because she had an alcoholism problem. And every time she got drunk, she ended up pregnant. And each time she aborted. And if that's what she want to do, I mean, I wouldn't say that's the best way to deal with it, because there are safer ways, less invasive ways to prevent pregnancy. And I think we should actually resort to the more easier ways of prevention. But sometimes it fucking happens, and I mean, I've taken the pill after, before.
Yeah.
I had just had a baby, and I was not equipped to have another one, and I was like, hell no, I ain't doing that, So I basically aborted too by taking the pill after.
I mean, when we think about concepts like morality and ethics, we think about doing good things to people and mitigating the bad things, like this humanitarian sort of philosophy. And so you think like with a let's say a woman, if she decides to go ahead and keep her baby, she's not really that well off. Maybe she's okay to take care of one child. But let's say she goes and she has 4 or 5 children, then all of those children are going to suffer. Like maybe if she just had one child, the one child's going to come up in society with an okay life, but that life is going to be depleted because the mother decided to have 4 and 5 kids and she's in poverty then. And so all the kids now are going to suffer. So now no kid is going to really live a good life. Everybody's going to be in an impoverished situation. And see, if you listen to the Christians, their morality is based on just authority. Like it's just saying, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. It doesn't matter whether the child suffers or not. What's more important is that you have the child, that you bring the child to term, because God, it has nothing to do with morality. It has nothing to do. It's like if God was really moral, because he knows everything, he's all powerful, he can see the future, then he must have known when he created this planet Earth and us people on it, that there were going to be people that were going to tie other people to chairs and put fucking batteries up to their balls and shit and zap their fucking balls until they died. He knew shit like that was going to happen. He knew children were going to get sexually molested even as infants. He knew that people were going to do all kinds of cruel things to each other, hurricanes, tornadoes, all this kind of stuff. Knowing all that, for him to go along and create things consciously, knowing that, if your basis of morality is going to be to mitigate suffering at all costs, then it seems like God would be rather immoral in that case. At least a little bit. Even if maybe at the end of maybe you could make the theosophy or something that at the end of the day they're all going to heaven. Everybody's going to go to heaven forever. So that little tiny bit of 80 years or 90 years that you live on this wretched planet is just a speck, just a little vapor in the eternity that you're going to live in heaven in pleasure and stuff like that. Even under that, God would have to at least be a little bit immoral, right?
Man, God would be a complete asshole in my book, because why the
Yeah. I would never do that to somebody.
Obviously, life is evolution, and it evolves and perfects itself the more that it evolves, and it's just flawed, and that's just all there's to it. And that's why we try to learn from our mistakes. That's why we self-reflect, because we try to create meaning as we go along, and that's just the nature and process of life. And if we stop reading into it so much and stop trying to make sense of it so much, and just try to actually learn from our mistakes, heal our traumas, move forward in a more coherent way instead of fucking fighting about ideologies and politics, then maybe we'll actually get somewhere, you know?
You know, and it's a strange thing, because like I look at my life and I look at all the hard times that I've been through, that at the times that they were happening, I thought, oh God, why me? Why do I have to go through this shit? This is why I know there can't be a God, because I'm going through all this bullshit. But then at the end of the day, when I came out on the other side, I came out stronger, wiser, better, more mature. And so I can't really look at it that way. But on the other hand, like, you know, my mom and dad went to see my auntie Lahua. And, you know, my auntie Lahua, she lost both her children, her only kids. She lost both of them early to death. You know, my cousins, they died. They both died, and it tore her up. Even her husband died. And so now she's all alone. She's an old lady. She's been all alone. She has no kids, and she has nothing but sadness, you know. And what did she learn from that? I mean, that's what she keeps asking, because that's what my mom has to talk. We're talking to her because my mom was trying to tell her, well, sometimes God lets bad things happen to teach us lessons and to help us grow as people, you know? And Monty's like, yeah, well, I lost my kids. You still have your kids. What did I learn from all that? You know? And my mom really can't say a whole lot. Just, she tries to just make her feel better, but it's a sad thing. It's like, you know, it makes you wonder, you know?
Honestly, I wouldn't be able to handle that. That's fucking terrible to even think about, and I feel really bad for your aunt. At the same time, man, I don't have the answers to that, and all I do know is, if there was such a thing as a God, then stuff like that wouldn't make sense, right?
Right.
The fact that stuff like that even happens, so that just shows even more that, you know, consciousness, learning and exploring itself, is going to come with a lot of imperfections throughout the process, and a lot of things are going to happen that we just don't understand. I mean, there could be a genetic disposition that we don't know about that affected this particular family. There could be some kind of hidden variable that we just don't know about, right? Or it's just something that just happens in nature, because nature is sometimes unpredictable, chaotic, and imperfect. That's all I could say.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like Michael Levin said, you know, he said, we look at like these cells that I've created, like I didn't touch them. All I did is I removed the constraints that nature and evolution puts on cellular development and evolution. I took those away just to see if nature could figure it out itself intelligently, like not just through evolution, blind evolution, but how long would it take for nature to intelligently solve the problem? And he says, and it was immediate. He said that was the thing that really blew my mind, and all the research, my whole team was just blown away, because they came back the next night and were like, Michael, these tetrabots, they're already figured it out. They're already coming in with solutions to the energy problem. They're already figured out a way to feed. They've already done the things they need to do to survive. You've taken away all the constraints. They should, by theory, die out. But nature has figured out a way. And he goes, and as beautiful as that is, it still goes to doing what nature does, feeding on other shit. eating other things, killing other things. That's what it figured out to do. It figured out how to protect itself, to kill other shit. Like, what's so good about that? Like, well, it's just, I guess it's good, but I don't know. Like, I guess it just depends on whether you're the one getting eaten or not.
That also brings me to a different example, right? From a whole different perspective, perspective. That's not a word. Perspective. Okay.
Perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. That goes. Fuck you, DoorDash. Up here telling me. They're not going out there and they're gonna give me a $2 order. Anyway.
People got to eat, man. People got to eat.
Anyway, this goes along with what you were saying. So I knew this family, right? It's a long time ago. I'm not going to say any names, but this lady was she worked in triage, right? Delivering babies or whatever. And then she had an accident, and she had some kind of brain injury, and she started having seizures and headaches. So she ended up starting to steal medication from the hospital, and she got strung out on opium, opiates, something like Vicodins or Oxycontin or some shit, right? Well, anyway, the husband, he was in the army, and he had to jump out of a plane, and his parachute didn't open, and so he basically fell through a couple of trees before he hit the ground, and that's what kind of saved his life. But still, this man needed plates in his head and screws in his legs, whatever. So both these people had some big tragedies happen in their life. Well, make a long story short, they wanted to have kids and found out that they couldn't naturally do it. So they went through artificial insemination. Now, mind you, both of these people were addicts. He was an alcoholic and hooked on pain medication due to his injuries, and she was an alcoholic and hooked on pain medications due to her injuries. Okay, so they found out they can't have kids. They go through artificial insemination with the first child, the second child, the third child, the fourth child. They had altogether, I believe, 4 or 5 kids. The first child died from an overdose at the age of 15 because he started stealing the pills they had around the house since they've been born, since the kids been born. And he developed an addiction himself. And one day they just found him dead on the couch. This behavior or this pattern continued throughout the family. All the children were either alcoholics or drug addicts. And then it continued even into the next generation, where the daughter had a child, and then her child almost died from ingesting a pill that was left laying around. And the pattern just went on and on and on. So in that situation, you ask yourself, did nature make a mistake when these people naturally couldn't have children, but then they went and took the path of artificial insemination, and they created all these addicts that ended up dying, severely injured, severely addicted? So that makes you wonder too, on the flip side, was there a reason why they couldn't have children naturally? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's always counter examples. It's sometimes you may see a flip side to that story where it's a successful story or something. I don't know, but yeah, it does make you think though, because if you they couldn't have children for very obvious reasons, which actually led those reasons actually led to the suicide or whatever, right? Because of being hooked on pain medication.
It wasn't suicide. It was most of the people in that family died from addiction through accidents or.
Oh, but I mean the child. Oh, okay. So the child is yeah.
No, there were accidental overdoses. You know, the
accidental overdose. Gotcha.
The 15-year-old started developing his own addiction, stealing his.
Yeah, it was a direct connection. And the point is just it was a direct connection to the to the problem.
That pattern just persisted throughout that family. There were constant accidental deaths. There was addiction, and it went from her kids to her grandkids, and so on and so forth. And it just seems like this particular set of people wasn't supposed to have kids. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's what it seems like. I'm not saying that's a fact, because that may sound a little bit asshole-ish, but you know.
Yeah, it makes sense though. It kind of reminds me of it reminds me of two things. It reminds me of epigenetics, and it also reminds me of morphinogenic resonance or resonant morphinogenics, whatever it's called. We need to do a show on that one time. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm vaguely familiar with that, so let's not go into that, or I'm gonna make it look like a damn fool.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting though. Like it's memory. You know, it's like generational memory. It could be like species specific type of memories. The theory is like the theory that he had brought this Rupert Sheldrake brought up was like his whole thing explanation. He goes, you ever notice how dogs only care about what goes on in dog world? They don't really care what goes on in cat world, or they don't care what goes on in human world. They don't pay attention to noises that goes on with other animals. They mainly focus on the noises other dogs make and other things that dogs do. It's like that's because there's a resonance there in nature. Nature has a resonance where it communicates information over time, where that's why we resonate. And it says even on a personal level, he goes, it's even seen just in personal relationship. There's people you resonate with and there's people you don't resonate with. And that has a lot to do with memory and things that your experience has transmuted into your consciousness that causes you to resonate. Yeah.
We're talking more like cellular memory, right?
Yeah, like he was saying, it goes from, you know, consciousness into cellular, into everything. Like he said, there's just a resonance. He even takes it so far as the universe itself. He goes, the universe evolves. Yeah, that's the basis of universal evolution, is it resonates. Like once it learns, then it starts to use what it learned to evolve even further. And as it evolves further, it learns more things, and then it starts to resonate with that. And so you have pockets of the universe that are different than other places in the universe, and they all sort of resonate on their own, you know, frequencies.
And that makes a lot of sense to me, because I do believe that the opposite can happen too. You can fucking straight up change somebody's trajectory by imprinting specific patterns onto them through trauma and, you know, things like that. Like we see this in like narcissistic enmeshment, where the narcissist basically colonizes your mind and imprints.
He talks about that. Yeah, he talks about that narcissist. Yeah, he says how they get into your conscious, and what they do is they can flip you into a kind of new experience, and then you start to understand the world different, and you become a different person because you now resonate in a different frequency.
It's okay, child. What's that? Praise the Lord. What is that?
It's Jesus.
She just brought me a plate that says praise the Lord. When the church people came around again? Oh, okay.
Okay. How are you doing?
that was sweet of them, but you can eat that. I'm on a diet.
That's
Wait
funny.
a minute now. I guess you can say hello since you want to run your mouth.
Hello. How are you doing?
Okay, bye.
That's cute.
Sorry
man.
about that.
No, that's good. Yeah,
Praise
man.
the Lord.
It's praise the Lord. Just see what it is. What was it? Oh, wow. Please. Oh, praise the Lord. Wow. It does say that. Oh, that's nice.
That's because I'm talking all this shit online, and they're like, we gotta win this one over.
Yeah, we gotta change her trajectory. We gotta get her to resonate with us. We need some morphic resonance.
Just to be clear, I'm not against individual people who identify as Christian. Some of those people are some of the sweetest people I've ever met. It's more about the institutionalized indoctrination, that the dogma that I have a problem with. If you're a church-going person that finds community in your neighborhood church and you like to get together and hear scriptures, I don't have a problem with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. There's no reason for that. What's more important is people have a positive experience in it. And I was even talking about that on one of my last shows was, fuck what you believe. If it gives you a permission slip to act decent to other people and to yourself, then I'm all for it, whatever it is. As long as it gives you that permission slip, if that's what you need to be a good person, then great. That's what you need. It is what it is. And I don't have a problem with that. It's just that when they try to indoctrinate you and control you and tell you you don't exist, you shouldn't exist because you're an atheist or because you're, a person of a different person, kind of person, then that's where I have a problem, because that's very dualistic thinking. And dualism leads to that kind of fear and judgment and,
or the
inconsistency.
The minute you try to impose your views onto me and make my life hard or miserable because I don't see things the way you do, even though my belief doesn't harm you in any kind of way, that's when we're gonna have a fucking problem.
Yeah. I'll be like them crows, man. I'll be like them fucking crows. Did you see that video? Did you see that video?
Unfortunately, I was sick and I fucking fell asleep again. I'm sorry, but that's all I did yesterday. I didn't stay awake. I was under the weather. I had sore throats, a fever, and I was just kind of in and out.
Yeah, the crows, they hold grudges, so they don't like people, so they have their favorites and their enemies. So what they do, and it's so weird, they found out that through AI technology and studying the crows and stuff, they found signals and language patterns. They're able to decipher the crow's language, and they find out that most of the time crows talk about us humans. That's their biggest conversation, is us humans. They find us very fascinating, and they don't really like us too much either. They don't like us. They say we're assholes. And they say that they're probably right. That's what I'm saying. And so they remember, and not only do they remember you, they talk about you. So they like, one time they did an experiment. This guy put on a caveman mask, and he went and did some real fucked up shit to crows, like just started doing some bad behavior, like shooing them away and putting stuff on them, that they didn't want, and then letting them go. And then they got mad, just to make them mad, So the crows, every time he saw the man with the caveman mask, they'd swoop on his head and try to attack him physically. But then they noticed the next day he went out, it was like 3 and 4 crows that did it. Then it was like a whole swarm of crows. Whenever they saw him anywhere, they would just attack him. Like they were gonna beat his ass. Like they remembered his ass, and that crow told all his friends, this dude right here, you know, and they were attacking him. So then he took the mask off and walked, and they ignored him. They didn't care. They didn't recognize him.
That shows they
nothing.
knew.
Yeah, and then if he did good things, like he would feed them, then the crows would come to him and be nice to him. Like they would come to him and talk to him and stuff. They weren't mad. They weren't aggressive at all. But whenever he put that caveman mask on, though, man, they were after his ass. They were like, we don't like this dude right here.
Yeah, they identified him as the aggressor.
Yeah. It's like really weird. And then they ran the experiment over some time, and they found out that the children of the crows would attack. Like they even taught their kids about this dude. Like they passed it down to the children. Like they're not playing. Like,
well, they definitely have some kind of language then, because how else would they be able to pass that down?
Right. They passed it down to their kids. And so the AI went off of that experiment and started doing some tests, and they found out that actually the crows have passed down information to their children about humans, period. Like they have stories about us. They have probably myths in their own mind, you know, because, you know, of course, they don't know who we really are. So they probably have all kinds of stories about us to themselves. And whatever their language is, I couldn't even imagine what a crow language is like. But they started hearing like the screeching that means one thing, and other kind of screeching means another thing. And so the AI could tell you exactly what these particular noises mean. They were words, you know. Really wild stuff, man. Really wild stuff.
Well, at the very least, each one of their own sounds communicated some type of meaning, right?
Information, yeah. Frequency.
I wouldn't say their words. Yeah, I wouldn't say their words, but it's
like a frequency.
It's their mechanism of communication.
Mm-hmm.
But that's very interesting, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. And that's just crows. Imagine what other kind of animals. And then they were saying the other thing that was fascinating is they said that it kind of like questions some materialism sort of assumptions, because they say if you look at the crow's brain, it's not as big as a human's brain, obviously. They're only the size of a walnut, you know? So that kind of intelligence, how does such a small brain produce that kind of level of consciousness when on materialism, you know, is supposed to be about, you know, the size of the brain, the way it's connected, this and that. Yet you see these very simple creatures do.
The more pipes, the more consciousness.
Yeah, right. The more pipes. You know, it doesn't have that many pipes. That kind of blew that debunks T-Jump.
Yeah.
I didn't need that information to debunk T-Jump on that, though. Somehow I kind of knew he was wrong. That just didn't make any sense. Bernardo Castro was just laughing about it. He was laughing at him. But I think T-Jump was being a dick on that whole thing. I think he was being an asshole. But other people were like, no, he wasn't being an asshole. He was just being very cordial it was Bernardo that was being too upset. Like, no, he wasn't. It's just, how do you say some asinine shit like that and think I'm supposed to take you serious? You're obviously being a dick.
I don't think he was being a dick or an asshole. I just think that, you know, people are so thoroughly brainwashed to believe materialism as reality, right? Because that's what we've been taught since we've been little in school and everything. And so people just believe that, and they believe it as, they accept that as to be normal, you know, so it must be true. So they're going to say,
yes, the culture,
whatever. Yeah, they're going to say whatever to make it true. You know, it don't matter. Even if it means it sounds stupid, you know, because that's basically what materialism says, right? That complexity, that consciousness arises out of the complexity of the brain or some shit. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Some shit like that.
Yeah, and the more complex it is, then the more it can do more complex things like logic and mathematics and having, richer feelings. But it's kind of like when you do psychedelics, that actually quiets the brain. It kind of like shuts down the brain. Yet when you shut down the brain, you have this richer experience. It's kind of like near-death experiences. You know how they say when people are going through near-death experience, they had a cardiac arrest. They don't get enough oxygen to their brain because their blood's not running to their brain. Their brain's not functioning normally. Yet, the conscious experiences that these people talk about are very coherent. They're not like your average hallucinations, or they're very coherent, very structured. They're not, crazy. Like, if you take, like, I know I've taken some really fucked up drugs in my life, man. And if you take certain drugs, you're having a hallucination. Like, you're seeing, like, one day I took this fucking acid, man, and took too much acid. You don't ever want to take too much acid. Like, this guy gave me some acid. He goes, "Here you go, man. Here's some acid." I took the whole thing. And he goes, "Hey, did you take a little bit of that acid?" I said, "Yeah, I took the whole thing." He goes, "Oh, shit, you took the whole thing? You're only supposed to take just one little piece." I took the whole thing. The next 5 days were horrible. I would be sitting there in front of the refrigerator.
No wonder you're an idealist. Now I know what
Yeah. Yeah. The moon was talking to me. Like, a lot of these visions were just very incoherent. Just like dreams, they're very incoherent. You couldn't make sense of them. You try to make sense of it. You really couldn't. You'd struggle to make sense of it. Very disconnected. But in near-death experiences, yeah. But if you take something like if you have like a near-death experience or something like that, the visions, the experience is supposed to be realer than real, so to speak. And believe me, I know, because I used to interview like hundreds of different experiencers when I was used to go to these IANS meetings in California, which is the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And talking to these people, they would all tell you similar stories, almost word for word, man. They were like the same kind of thing. And a lot of these people didn't even know what NDEs were. A lot of these people were atheists, or were still atheist type people that didn't really have a religious background, yet they talked about the same kind of experiences. So, the brain could be going through some shit that, that we don't understand. I don't know if it means there's an afterlife. I don't know that. It didn't really leave me the impression that they actually went somewhere. I just got the impression that whatever happened was very common among people, and it had to do with a dying brain, not necessarily a person who actually died and went on the other side, because they didn't actually die. They just came close to death. So maybe it's just the brain's way of creating comfort for them or something. But a lot of it was mysterious, though. Like, they claimed to have special abilities when they came back, and they claim all kinds of things. But people exaggerate too, though. People read in the shit.
If the brain is an interface, though, right, it would make sense that if it's impacted in any kind of way, that it could change the interface, so to speak, right? So,
yeah.
That's kind of how I look at that. And
yeah.
So
that's what I'm saying.
That makes perfect sense to me. That if you went through some kind of experience, whether it's an accident or brain trauma or even psychedelics, that it changes your interface, and then you come back and you may start seeing things from a different perspective, or being able to do
and have abilities. Look, you heard of these people that are like what do they call them, sudden savant syndrome, where they have like these brain damage, and then all of a sudden they can play like Mozart on a piano, or do all these special mathematical wizardry and shit. Like, it's almost like the brain is like a filtering valve. And if you damage it and you open up that filter, now you're able to access more of reality. I mean, as it is, we can only see a very small spectrum of light. We can only hear so much of the sound waves that are out there. Like dogs and cats can hear better than us, smell the same way. All of our senses are modulated through the brain, and the brain is kind of like a filtering valve. But we know that when you damage it or change it in some ways, it can actually expand your consciousness to where you're able to experience a lot of things you couldn't before,
Yeah, or just change your focal point. Like, you may be the type of person that doesn't really pay a lot of attention to your surroundings, but then you may go through some kind of trauma that causes you to have PTSD, and now all of a sudden you're hypersensitive to your environment, and now you're perceiving all types of shit that you didn't pay attention to before. So yeah, I mean, to me, it makes perfect sense. I don't. What are they saying?
I think he's responding. Exit Music says there's actually a limiting principle where we can't construct forms that don't exist in physics. The way I define wrongness is either lack or desperate, incoherent chunks. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But if we did see things that didn't exist in physics, maybe known physics, because maybe there's more to learn about physics than we actually know. And so if we see something new, maybe it's already there in the Platonic forms or whatever. Those forms could already exist. We're not aware of them. It's kind of like I saw this thing in, again, AI. And we're going to have to revisit that shit, man. Now supposedly Japan has broken the AGI barrier. And so now everybody's freaking out. Now it's able to learn on its own, do all these things on its own. They've now seen it to where when you get it to play games, it refuses to win. It just fucking loses on purpose just to say, fuck you. Like, it's doing shit that's not, as programmed, so to speak. You know what I mean? And this opens up some new physics or something that we could discover. There's no outside of existence where valid forms exist. It's possible to have forms in the mind if they exist, though. Outside of existence.
I don't really know what that means. Can you explain that?
You break that down. What I understand existence as external persistence. So I understand everything that exists is out there persisting, of course. Valid forms, if they do exist, they would be within existence. So I'm not sure what that means. It's possible to have forms in the mind if they exist, though.
So he's calling us delusional. Basically, he's saying that
I don't know.
There's no proof that there's anything outside of
the mind
existence. Well, I mean, existence. What does that entail? Just your own experience or all of experience? I mean, that just depends on.
Maybe what he's saying is
outside of existence.
He's saying it's possible to have forms. It is possible to have forms in the mind if they exist, though. Right? I mean, that's kind of self-explanatory.
He's talking about there's no outside of existence. So what is he referring to? Your own subjective experience? Are you saying outside of your own subjective experience? What?
I make a hard distinction between existing and forms, and no, I didn't call you delusional for anything like consciousness. Okay, so I make a hard. There's a difference between existing and forms. Oh, okay. So you're saying that forms are those things that don't exist, but we know forms do exist, right? Or what do we mean by exist?
forms is about non-local patterns, right? Is that how?
Yeah, forms are just patterns. Yeah, forms are fundamental patterns to existence. In other words, existence is based on patterns of forms. Like forms
I didn't mean non-local. I meant non-material. Sorry.
Yeah, non-material. Yeah. Yes, forms would be non-material. That's right. Okay, and those forms are fundamental. In other words, what exists is a reflection of the forms.
I would like
That's
to know
what that means.
more about this guy's ideology.
Yeah, I think he's been on before. Neo-modern Christianity, you've been on before. And I think you were he's an idealist. Remember, he came on and he was talking about consciousness and stuff like that. I think I remember him coming on. If I'm thinking about the right person.
I heard about it, but I don't think I was there that day.
Hey, Nell, how you doing?
Hey, Nell.
Hey, guys, what's up?
I'm doing good. And hey, Neo D Establishment, what's up, my brother?
I remember you.
Yeah, I figured it'd be quicker to explain it with my face, you know?
Yeah.
Now I remember you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I told you he was on before, and he was talking about kind of like the same things we were talking about. So it's sometimes though, Neo, it's kind of hard to understand you sometimes. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, I'm going pretty hard and often use like my own coinage, so it gets difficult.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna get like some feedback and stuff because I just jumped on my phone. So I'm just gonna explain this and then pop off. If I come back, I'm gonna put in earbuds and everything.
Okay.
So what I mean by things don't exist so forms like are energetic or material, geometric, but they exist. So there's no forms outside of existence itself.
Right.
I make a distinction between like the object and the object, which is essentially like energy in our mind, which is like that's like, okay, we take in information with our sense organs and generate an internal simulation, which is a separate object, but is obviously has form that kind of reflects whatever object we're perceiving. Plus, we've developed the ability to abstract like fully away from anything that's immediate. So it's like we can like kind of examine our environment and pick a path like in some functional sense, but we develop the ability to abstract even further, like things that are not remotely immediate to us. So I just kind of meant like you can't think anything. There is actually a limiting condition. You can't think something that doesn't exist in any kind of form. So when I try and define wrongness, like I sort of look at it like grammatical. So it's like the up dog brown cow. Like, is that a sentence exactly? I kind of look at it like chunks of forms that exist but aren't forming like a coherent like whole puzzle picture,
like a syntax.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I think you can only think things that are possible to think, like by some physics or whatever you want to call it, which is it's extremely autistic and basically like just a statement that it is what it is or something. But I do get into this argument with people because like you can only think things that you can think. And it's weird that I need to like even make that argument in philosophy, but I try to.
Yeah, because that makes sense to my experience because I've never had dreams or thought about things that I've never experienced before.
Well, like, I think the universe.
I cannot imagine. Like I can't imagine colors I've never seen, or I can't imagine a taste I've never tasted. But now one thing I will say though, there are people who they call them synesthesia, and they do see a larger range of colors than normal people. But that doesn't really refute what you're saying because what you're saying is then those colors must already exist anyway. So you're just saying that they
or you have conflating or false dichotomies like in the wiring, the connection of your brain. So you're either schizophrenic and those colors don't exist in any fashion. You just have you're trying to like shove puzzle pieces together in a puzzle that isn't really one picture. Or like, yes, they do exist. Some people have a wider range, and the universe is extremely crazy. So I'm speaking from like the perspective that there's a lot of crazy stuff that exists. I absolutely acknowledge like all kinds of crazy aspects of reality, sort of like, you know, imagined as like the pantheons of the gods in like ancient mythopoetics. Like there's a lot of crazy stuff all over the place as far as forms go. The universe is not like, you know, particularly simple. But I just think that like you either have, you know, things that, because it's either completely crazy and real, or normal, I guess, or just schizophrenia, like in a clinical sense, like you're kind of just conflating or creating false dichotomies, like in syntax, or you have a lack sort of a piece of information, and that somehow changes the context of what you are saying to be like wrong in nuance, maybe generally correct, but wrong in nuance. But I got to get off because this thing's just going to be feeding back and terrible.
Okay.
So I'll jump back into the chat.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. I was just going to say about that. What he said. I was just going to say, well, how do we know for certain that schizophrenic people aren't actually perceiving parts of reality that we don't perceive? Also, I was going to clarify and say, ask him, is he basically saying that reality, we can only perceive reality the way reality is, or reality can only be what it is? Is that what he's saying?
Pretty much. And he's just saying that whatever we think is going to reflect what reality is in some way. We might not get the full picture all the time, but whatever we get is going to be reflecting of reality. And he also says here, I agree, a decent amount of schizophrenia isn't actually.
Yeah. What if you come up with, well, I guess what he's saying, even if you were to come up with a new idea or perceive a new perspective, it all still works within the nature of reality, right?
Right. Okay. Hey, Nell, did you want to add something to that? Or did Nell have anything she wanted to say?
Nell, you still with us? Or did you go into that vortex in your picture? Did you get sucked in?
Yeah.
He may have.
Yeah, you can be wrong about stuff. Yeah, you can have false beliefs. Obviously, you can obviously have false beliefs. Yeah, I think Nell, either you're stepped away or something. I don't know.
Well, look at here. I'm an old lady in this chair starting to hurt my ass cheeks.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I'm gonna get off here too.
I'm running out of steam here.
Yeah.
Oh, my mic was just having an issue there.
Oh, okay. Okay. How you doing, Neil?
I'm doing all right. I don't really have a whole lot to say about what he was talking about. I was gonna try to bring up with the whole topic with Christianity and paganism. I know in the title I saw ancient African consciousness, and I was just wondering if either of you two would know anything about those cultures and the different things they believe in with regarding consciousness.
You want to go first, Sophia?
Hell no, I'm trying to get comfortable.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Well, yeah,
my whole bones started aching. I have to stand up. What now?
Oh, I was just wondering about if either of you would be able to delve into any of the ancient or current African cultures and their different viewpoints on consciousness.
Well, the main thing I would point out about it is that it's really the same structure that Africans were talking about that we're now discovering in physics, modern physics. I guess even in biology with Levin's work. And they're basically just different languages expressing the same structure. So when we go all the way back, we can see that the first ontology was actually along the lines of consciousness being primordial. So what they believed, what Ptah is basically saying that consciousness is primordial, and that through frequency or sound waves, the physical of reality is therefore spoken into existence or reality, which that's not to be taken literal, right? It's more
Yeah.
like with frequency, kind of like we see in cymatics, where frequency or sound waves affect patterns and arranges the material,
Structures.
structures it, yeah. So I thought that's interesting that now in 2025, we're kind of finding our way back there. You know, we're having some kind of awakening, and I think that me personally, I think that the materialist viewpoint is kind of a hijacking of the narrative, kind of how narcissists do, and then they kind of force it onto you and try to control your view of reality. And so we've been trapped in that for quite a while, and I think it is very oppressive, and I think it's directly linked to you know, the crusaders, the oppressors, the assholes.
We pitted it against the Christian colonizers, like because we played the other video that was talking about they had a video like, we have to escape from paganism, fight paganism in this country. Christian nationalism they're trying to overthrow Christian values and family, and they're trying to smuggle in LGBTQ plus. They're trying to smuggle in witchcraft and evil and abortion and things like that. And so we're going through it.
They obviously attack us like that because on a smaller scale, I always compare it to like a narcissist that keeps a hold of you through enmeshment to control your reality. Because obviously, a narcissist wants to benefit off of you. You're just an appliance, right? You're supposed to work a certain way. Like, you're just a toaster, and you're supposed to toast bread. And if you don't do that anymore, you're defective. You got to be put back in line and fulfill your obligations. And I think that the materialist worldview that was really ushered in through religion is all about that. It's about control. It's about controlling your reality, your perception, so that they can benefit off of you. You know, use you up, suck you dry, keep you feeding the beast, the system.
So, would you say there's a connection between Christian nationalism, or the rise of it that we see today, and the materialism that we see?
Hell yeah. I'm actually going to go into that in my book. The story of Cain and Abel that was never told correctly. The builders. I'm going to be talking so much shit about them.
I find that interesting, since it's like, when looking at history, it's like materialism first seemed to rise up to challenge Christianity, and now it seems like Christianity has like co-opted materialism.
Because it's dualism.
But if you think about early Christianity, wasn't literalism. Remember, like, because early Christianity was more like I guess spiritual, what was it, Gnosticism or Gnostics?
Yeah, there was dualistic Gnosticism. Yeah, there's the material world, there is a material world, and then there's a spiritual world.
Because the early Christians didn't take scripture literal, and stuff like that. They had more of a, I guess, metaphysical understanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or no, or am I wrong? I don't think the early church were literalists.
No, from what I've read about scholars, or the scholarship of, they were not like today's Christian fundamentalists.
Right.
Yeah, because look at Paul, who was what, first Saul. He was kind of mixing paganism with, the Judaic.
Judaism,
doctrine,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and his brand of Christianity won over because he was able to appeal to the paganism of Rome and sort of smuggled in a lot of concepts and stuff. Even though he was, and he told them, "You're not under the yoke of the law," which was the Jewish law, and but the Jews still could. The Jews still followed circumcision and not eating pork and all, and not eating blood and stuff. But the pagans, they could eat blood, like the blood sausages and shit.
Yeah. No.
But just kind of lure them all in under one umbrella,
Yeah. It was a brilliant move by Paul. Really, it's just I wish I wish Christians today would recognize the pagan roots within their own religion.
Exactly.
Once again, that shit reminds me of how a narcissist mirrors your behavior to establish that bond, right?
Yeah. It's how they sucked you in. It's like the Catholic Church, I was looking at this documentary of some of the religions in Haiti and some of the religions in Brazil and stuff like that. And a lot of those folks call themselves Catholics, but in their home, they have all these, masks, and, they have the incense, and they have the hanging of the bones and the entrance of their home. All of this stuff was supposed to bless their home. And so they're all very pagan sort of traditions. And we even saw a video, we were reacting to that video, like here in Louisiana, you have a lot of those churches where the guy will come out and he'll like channel some spirit, and he'll be the pastor of a Christian church, and yet he'll be channeling the spirit like the holy daddy or whatever he'll call himself. It's just pagan fucking practices mixed in with Christianity is all it is, And a lot of Christians, they will say that that's smuggling in devil worship, into the church, and so you have, especially down here in the South, you have a lot of movements, like especially with the Pentecostal church and stuff like that, the more fundamentalists, they'll say that, these are the false church. This is the false Christianity out to mislead people into paganism. But yet, if you look at these churches, they're the ones that do the exact same thing. You'll see them falling out in church and doing the holy dance up in the church and doing all of these same movements that the pagans do, It's just really interesting how they're so similar, yet they talk shit about each other,
I mean, almost every denomination falls victim to the no true Scotsman fallacy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no true Christians.
Exactly. Yeah, the no Scotsman, no true Scotsman fallacy. That's right. And you can't identify the way you want to, And that's really what it's about. It's about identity politics. It's about we have to support this group because that's how they galvanize people and get power for themselves. If they can split people up. And this is where dualism sort of finds its little anchor, of power. It's able to get people to feed into this dichotomous thinking, us against them, tribalism, echo chambers, all of this kind of stuff. And non-dualism, on the other hand, is more inclusive. We're all about inclusivity, humanitarianism, validating people's experience, being who they are, you know, being your genuine self and accepting you and love and appreciation and of who you really are, you know. Whereas this dualistic sort of thinking is more about separating people out, you know, and demonizing the other side, you know. And that's what the we were going over in the African history of, they were called the Ptah. And this is like some of the most ancient religious writings found in Africa. And it was promoting this sort of non-dualism, you know, this sort of thing that everybody is sacred in their own way, you know. And they saw that as a virtue. And it went into other things that sort of shaped logic, stoicism, epistemology, metaphysics, Platonism of forms, ideas like that, that sort of anchored Western culture. But then throughout history, as we went into the Enlightenment, you know, the Europeans sort of painted it out like they were the authors of all of these sort of virtues. They didn't want to give any credit to the Black people because that would go against their own slave master mentality, you know? Why would they do that?
And I mean,
Well, I mean,
not
Africa
just
was an abundant. Africa is very abundant. It's full of resources, so it's not really about color of skin. It's about control over resources. So obviously, you had to strip people of their sovereignty, which includes their core belief system,
their culture. Yeah.
So you can, you know, strip them and rob them like all narcissistic fucks do. And, we just gotta wisen up to that shit. Like,
yeah, and there's an evolutionary picture of this, and I know that you study a lot of evolution now, and so there's an evolutionary sort of perspective you can look at this too. It's that any sort of species is going to compete for resources, and they're going to do just that. They're going to compete, and they're going to have those sort of wars. And they're going to war about anything in order to grab those resources. You know, that's how they evolve, you know, and become the apex. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think that that's the original purpose of being, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think that's just where the first split in consciousness kind of occurred. I think that originally people lived in harmony and abundance, you know, and then something happened. Let's just say that somebody got greedy or selfish or some shit, you know. And I think that we're supposed to return back to that, you know, more harmonious.
Right, and that goes back to what again, listening to some of these evolutionary biologists, they say that actually evolution isn't about the strong shall survive. It's really about cooperation. Yeah, and they say that actually societies that know how to cooperate and trade with each other, that's what promotes the species.
I mean,
throughout history, that the species that survive and went on to the next phase are the species that cooperated. So there's that.
Well, it's like a lot of people get the strongest, the survival of the fittest wrong. It's like, you know, fittest doesn't mean strongest. Yeah, it's like
right.
So a lot of
it doesn't mean domination, right? Domination and suck you dry and take all your resources.
Which is what social Darwinists want you to believe it is. It's all about dominance. But it's like
I'm anti that shit.
Yeah. It's like fitness usually refers to, you know, reproductive, you know,
creativity, production, and all that good stuff. You know, creativity. Like, what can we create together? What can we do to move forward? What can we do to empower one another? You know, build each other up. Equal reciprocity.
Yeah. Self-actualize. You know.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Like, why do you have to kill another or put down another to elevate yourself. Like if you got to do that, you're already the weaker species, and that's why you're even resorting to that in the first fucking place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I was looking at one that was talking about evolution of the early human Homo sapiens, and how their survival depended on storytelling and myth making and meme making. So they sort of like, by passing on that information, yeah, they call it memes, like the original
I didn't
memes.
know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, they call it the original memes. I think Richard Dawkins even talked about that. That
So
they're called cultural. Yeah, they call them cultural memes. It's where their language represents concepts and ideas, and these sort of memes help to direct and guide different societies to be successful and to promote themselves. And those who could create the best memes were the ones who kind of grew in the stronger and better societies. And those who couldn't would resort to violence, like enslavement and stuff like that. They would destroy the memes of other people in order to get rid of that superpower, and they would just take over by force. And so you're right. It's like some cultures they resort to that, like the Neanderthals. We were talking about that. Neanderthals, they only operated by force. Like, even though among themselves, and it was really sad. I was watching another damn thing about Neanderthals. Did you know they created more tools than humans did? Like us Homo sapiens, they actually had more sophisticated tools than we did. And it's like, why did they have to be so violent? That's what kind of threw them. They threw themselves under the bus.
Yeah, and I also think. Oh, I was just going to say, I think it was Neanderthals where they found that they started taking care of their elderly too.
Yeah. They had some good points with them, but they were so fucking mean, man. Like, they were crazy, man.
That's just the thing. They took care of the elderly, but they sometimes also ate their own and shit like that. But they also had like meaningful rituals, like burials and stuff. And it's like, on one hand, they were very, like, I guess, spiritual. Then on the other hand, they were very antisocial. They had great culture, where the female was only good for that and by force. And I don't know, they were some weird.
Some people say that, they say, if you wonder why so many European religious people are hypocrites, it's because they descended from the Neanderthals. They got most of the Neanderthal genetics. That's why
they say we all have like 1% of the DNA, but I think there's still something like what I would refer to as a philosophical Neanderthal, the apex predators of society we call the elitists. They still think like that. I think it comes from lack mentality, and that's kind of what my book's going to go into. How, after the Ice Age that brought about the first group of people that left Africa, and they went up north, and, the harsh climates and stuff, it kind of caused them to develop differently, right? Because if you live in paradise with fucking coconuts and trees and shit, and you got everything you want and need, and another motherfucker grows up in
the hood somewhere. Yeah. Like the Neanderthals grew up in the hood. Neanderthals were ghetto as fuck, man. They didn't have shit.
Savage as hell, you know what I'm saying?
Fuck yeah.
You might not eat for months and shit, so you have to eat your own or eat another motherfucker because you're trying to survive, right? So I think that originally it came from scarcity, right? That we developed certain type of the defense mechanisms or survival mechanisms. But here's my problem with the whole thing. Why do some people still today resort to this type of lack of mentality when it's no longer necessary? At this point, it becomes a choice, right? I see where somebody feels the need to do this because, like I said, environmental factors definitely play a role, and you get put into survival mode, right? So you got to do what you got to do. But once that's not necessary, why are you still doing that shit? You know what I mean?
Well, it's like we've propped up a system that rewards greedy people and punishes people who just, you know, who are trying to do their best, but you know they're not psychopath enough to step on others.
Yeah, to use others. Right. Those people don't win. They're not the winners. You know?
And it's so sad that you have to almost become like them just to survive. And I experienced that firsthand in a relationship with a financially controlling piece of shit narcissist, and I had to resort to similar tactics just to survive, and it just didn't feel right to myself, you know. But it's like I had to, because I would not have survived that shit. And I'm not gonna go into details, but that's sad that, you know, what I got out of it though, on the bright side, y'all, there's the bright side. You ain't gotta never become like them. All you gotta do is have the proper boundaries. And what we really need, we need unity. Because that's what happened. The way that the Neanderthals ended up dying out, they got defeated by other humans who started becoming smart, right? They went underground and started hiding from them, but still watching them, and then ambushed their asses. And they stuck together. They came together and stuck together and unified. They actually defeated them. So that's all we got to do.
In many cases, they did. Well, in many cases, they did. In a lot of cases, the Neanderthals just killed themselves out by spreading their genes to us humans because they were so rapey. And they just freaking diluted their own genes out of existence.
That, and I think they had bigger brains than us, so it took a lot more energy to, you know, keep that thing going.
Yeah, that's right.
That's probably why they're
exactly. But you brought up a good thing, Sophie, about why do people continue in this lack mentality, and it's almost like, you know, when you think about our evolutionary history, our bodies are designed for work and designed for, you know, survival in an inhospitable environment. But because of technology coming in so quick, now we're able to sit around and do nothing. That's why people have to in order to feel good, they have to go to gyms. They compete on all these different levels. We're all on computers, being keyboard warriors and having conflicts and being contrarians and all of this stuff that really creates a lot of depression and antisocial behavior. It's because we don't have the same outlet. Like they were saying, they did some study, like, and we were talking about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk is wrong. Like he was saying that, you know, everyone out there in these third world shithole countries are jealous of us and our country and all the wonderful freedoms we have and technologies we have. But if you really break down the facts, like this one British kid brought up, he said, yeah, but in the West, we have more depression, suicide rates. When you go out into these third world countries and see these farmers, they ain't depressed. They're not fucking offing themselves and all of this stuff because they're busy. They're working. Their minds are focused. They're doing shit that they naturally are meant to do, that we as humans naturally just do, you know. But because people in the West are not familiar with that kind of life, we don't know what to do with ourselves in a way. So we're just depressed.
I would say it's different for everybody kind of in the West, because I always have to work my fucking ass off like a fucking mule. And I think that there just needs to be a balance between healthy exercise, which comes in all kinds of forms, whether you go to the gym, whether you work. There's always going to be work, even if you're tilling the ground and growing your own crops, or you have a farm. It's always going to work. But I think the problem is when you either don't work at all and you literally have no purpose and you're just consuming and then you wake up one day and feel like there's no meaning in life and want to
Yeah.
off yourself. And then you also have it though where you're so overworked, where you don't have time to spend time with your family, where you have no leisure time at all, where you're not being creative in any kind of way. You're wasting your mind, you're wasting your energy, and you're just slaving for somebody for minimum wage. And then you get to the same point. What am I doing with my life? You feel like there's no purpose, right? So I think that the what's the word? Shit, Scott, help me out. I guess the solution is to create meaning, a balanced meaning. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of these kids or teenagers that grow up on the internet and play these realistic games and they've seen everything online, the brain registers it as that they actually experience this, right? That the brain doesn't really know the difference. So by the time they're like 20, they feel like they've done everything. And then they feel empty. Like, what else is there to do now? You know, there's no meaning left in life. And
Right.
I think that's the key. We have to continue to create meaning throughout life. And
Of course.
we shouldn't go.
Yeah, that's what I think I talked about that in my book too, you know, that, you know, fighting depression, what helped me in fighting anxiety that I suffer with and depression is to every day try to have a point to the day, like have some meaningful day, a meaning, a purpose, and focus on that. It makes you feel positive, productive. It helps your brain to sort of rewire itself into a more positive kind of mindset. So, you know, the brain is very plastic. If we keep on dwelling on negativity and repeating negative patterns in our thoughts, then that's what our mind is going to sort of become. We're going to always see and experience reality as very negative. We're going to draw that kind of reality to ourselves physically, because that's all we see in life. All we see, all we feed off of is the negative. And so we're going to constantly be unhappy and unpeaceful. Whereas, you know, if you just wake up in the morning and say, you know, if it's hard to find meaning, maybe start off small. Like I remember I got really low at one point, and the most I could do was say, well, today, what I intend to do today is to clean my house. I'm going to make sure that I clean. That's all I'm going to focus on. That's my meaning for today, is to clean this house. And that in itself meant everything. And from that, I was able to expand from there, you know, and do better, you know?
Yeah, but the problem is, like, I agree with you kind of, but then sometimes it's like you're not in control of all your external environment all the time.
Of
and
course.
Some people are not. Some people can't do that. Some people wish they could make that kind of choice. You know, some people have to work in gold mines just to make it and bring home a loaf of bread. You know what I mean? So it's like there's an imbalance in the world, and I think that we have to really do something about that.
That's the problem of evil we were talking about. Like, you know, it's imbalanced. Like, there's people that they grow up in war-torn countries and villages, and they watch their parents be killed, or they watch a wild animal tear their parents to death, and they somehow survive. This kid is on his own. It's not fair, and no amount of comparison. You know,
that kind of stuff I would say happens on an isolated. It's very isolated, you know. Naturally, things like that happen. But I'm saying overall, you know, you got some people who commit suicide because they don't got shit to do and no meaning and nothing to do, and too much.
I've been there.
Time. And then you got people who fucking are overburdened, and it kills them physically, mentally.
And some people are just wired differently. Like me, one thing I can say about myself is, for me, I don't give a fuck kind of person. Like, there were times in my life where I tried to commit suicide. Like, I went and downed a whole bunch of pills. Like, I just didn't give a fuck anymore. And I was mad that it didn't work. And then, you know, I'm just lucky. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm saying that that's part of my problem. That's part of who I am as a person. I can be a kind of person that if I don't see the point in shit anymore, I just feel like giving up. Like, what's the point to keep trying? I don't get it. Like, what am I
There's
doing?
many ways you can arrive at that state of mind. I was there too at some point when I was a teenager.
And then there's some people that are supermen that'll just be like, oh man, you just got to pick yourself up, man. You just got to make things work, man. You can't just be a victim, man.
I don't know. I don't think that.
You know?
I don't think that's very true. I think that's just some bullshit they tell you.
Yeah,
Just
that's bullshit.
It is bullshit, man. Of course.
That's how they make those self-help books. And
I
hate that shit.
I'm gonna tell you, Nell, the only reason I fucking made it this far is because there was something in my life that gave me a reason to live, and that was my kids. Had it not been for my kids, I would have off myself already, like fucking long time ago. So that's bullshit. I didn't really pick myself up by the bootstraps. I was inspired by my children to keep going, and they gave me the strength that I needed to continue to go.
Whenever these red pill people tell me to pick myself up by the bootstraps, I'm like, isn't that impossible? Like, how do you do that? Like, that's a bad analogy. Like,
around your neck.
Well, I mean, you know, from my own.
See, you say yourself when I put that motherfucker around your neck.
For real.
From my own personal experience, it's just, I've been there too, and that when I was like working at Amazon, I was depressed all the time and became suicidal. It's like it was literally my work environment was killing me, and now I'm a medical assistant and in a much better place mentally too. But also though, like me realizing that I'm a trans woman, that transformed me in more ways than one. Like I've never felt, sure there's all these different stressors that are stressing me the fuck out, but I'm also more motivated than I ever was before in my life.
Because you stepped into your authenticity, and that ultimately is very, very important to be who you really are at the core, and you're no longer doing what everyone else fucking expects of you, and that is one of the main things as well. You have to step into your own authenticity, like 100%, and that's kind of what helped me too, being a so-called mystic and having these experiences that people think is all bullshit. Also being a so-called masculine woman and always being told I'm not feminine enough, and I'm just like, fuck you. If you can't handle me, you can't handle me. Keep it moving.
Exactly.
Because I had to be this way. I had to adapt to my environment. I had to be a leader. I had to make sure that my kids have a roof over their heads. I had to make sure they're fed. I had to do what I fucking had to do. So if I'm too rough for you and you want some little pretty bitch sitting there sucking your dick all day, then go somewhere. You know what I mean? I can't help it. Like I'm a wild woman. My hair is all over my head some days. I'm not always gonna be fucking cute. You know what I mean? But I tell you one thing, if your ass is in the ditch, I can also pull your ass out sometimes, and you will appreciate my strength then. You know what I mean? Everybody hates the warrior until the enemy is at the gate, and then all of a sudden you want to latch on to me. You know, I have to really be careful not to get bitter, because sometimes I really feel like, you know what, I'm gonna leave your ass right fucking there. I'm not pulling your ass out. Fuck you, and let the quicksand take you. But then I'll be like, shit, I can't do that. Come on, motherfucker. You know?
Hey, Sophia, I don't know if Nell's seen this either. Did you ever see that point when I trolled Coach Renz yet? Did you have a chance to see that video, Sophia?
Hell no. You already know.
I'm gonna play that clip. I know I played this on a previous show, but I'm gonna play it again just because this is just a lighthearted way to. I don't know. I'm gonna play this video. Y'all gonna get a trip out of this. This is me being. Yeah, this is him, man. I got his ass so good. He was so mad. He was so mad. He told me that his blood pressure raised, and he even talked about it the next day because he didn't remember me. And the thing is, I thought he remembered me, but when I realized he didn't remember me, I just pretended to be a Christian nationalist, and it made him go. He said his blood pressure was through the roof. And the people, if you pay attention to the chat, the people in the chat, even people who watch our show, were really disappointed in me. They were like, I can't believe this is the same Scott I watch on the Mirror Point. Like, this guy is a hypocrite. This is not the person I thought he was. Like, it was so hilarious, man. But I cleared it up at the end. But, this is a trip. Y'all got to watch this. Hold on.
It's almost like I'm an autopilot here, and I do security, and I enjoy doing security.
Okay. All right.
I'll let y'all later.
All right, stay on. IG never disappoints. Scott.
What's up, man?
How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Man, why do y'all hate God so much, man? Why y'all hate on God, man?
Okay. Why do y'all always assume that because we don't believe in your God, we're hating your God? I cannot hate something that I don't believe exists. You understand what I'm saying? It's like that's one of the coping cop-out things that I'm assuming you're a believer that y'all utilize.
But the thing is, brother, if there's no God, then what's the point of life? Why even get out of bed in the morning if everything is meaningless? Without God,
I thought you knew I was joking.
Actually, I think it's pretty sad that you have to have a God in order to have meaning in your life. My first development of meaning in my life was the love of my family when I was a child. As I grew, I developed love for other things around me. That gave me meaning. As an adult, I had a wife that gave me meaning. I was a Marine. Being a Marine gave me meaning. Having children gave me meaning. Wanting to do and experience certain things in life gives me meaning. I don't need a God to have meaning.
They're arguing me for real.
If you need a God to have meaning, then I wonder, would you even have morals?
Well, that's a good question. That's a great question, because without God, how can anything be right or wrong?
Because morality is subjective.
But that's just an opinion.
That's not an opinion. That's a fact. That's a pure fact.
So, yeah, but subjective morality would make morality an opinion, right?
Well, yes. Subjective morality does make morality opinion, which is why you go to certain countries, they have a different morality than the country that you're in. Have you ever been to a different country that had a different moral stance than what you have in your country?
I try not to go to them other countries.
Look at his face.
No, I hear what you're saying. I've been in other countries, and yeah, they got different laws. They got different. They different. They do things a lot different. But
so who's right?
The only law that counts, though.
But who's right? Who's wrong?
God.
So then, if you went to another country and if you went to Libya today, Libya still has the trans-Sahara slave trade.
Here we go.
Mm-hmm. So that would be correct then, because the Bible, the God of the Bible, is okay with slavery. So
yeah, the Bible regulates the practice of slavery back when slavery was the commercial way to make a living, the way to protect one's life. See, if you was in a war and you were defeated, you could either live out there in the land and die because you got no home no more, you got no food, or we could take you in as a slave. That's God having mercy on you. Slavery is merciful.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
I was such an asshole. He was getting so mad.
Oh man.
We're all slaves, sir.
No,
we're all slaves
we're
to
not.
God or sin.
Leviticus 25:44 46. Doesn't say anything about being a POW. Doesn't say anything about you not owning land or having a home. It purely says your male and female slaves you may buy from foreigners or foreigners who live amongst you, and you will own them as property and pass them down to your sons as an inheritance of property. But as for your Israelites, do not treat them harshly as you would treat the foreigner. So you can treat a foreign slave harshly, and it had nothing to do with it being someone without a home. Fathers were able to sell their daughters into slavery, and women, even though the Israelites were sold into indentured servitude, the women Israelites were slave property for life unless they came in with a husband. But if they didn't come in with a husband, then they were slaves for life. This isn't about mercy. That is the coping thing that Christians have tried to utilize today to separate the atrocity of slavery so that you can still believe in your book.
Yeah, I understand. And a lot of these Christians, I call them weak-kneed, flag-waving, phony Christians, because they try to skirt around the issue, which the real issue is that what God says is what's right, not what we think.
Slavery is right. You should believe that slavery is right.
God didn't condemn it.
So you think that it's okay to own another person?
God said we're all owned by somebody, either the devil or God.
So let me ask you this one. According to the Bible, if a young girl who is not betrothed to a man is raped and the man is caught, the man then pays the father the bride price, and then the young girl has to marry her rapist, provide children for him. He can get another wife, but he still has to do the husbandly duties towards that woman, and he can never divorce her. So do you think that it is right to force a rape victim to have to marry her rapist?
Yeah, because you know why? Because now that man has to be stuck with that woman for the rest of his life. There ain't nothing to do about it. Now he's punished.
Oh my goodness.
What about the woman who is having to be with and have sex with and provide children for and be a wife to a man who raped her?
But you do know women are property. Women are
okay. So yes, women are property.
See, that's what y'all don't understand.
No,
y'all don't need to understand that. See, women have a role in this world, and God has made that very clear in the Bible. See, you can father, she provides value to the father and the husband. You know, and if she's raped, she loses value. You see what I'm saying? And that's where all of this stuff. See, we got it upside down. We got it all upside down.
Property
because
damage.
the devil has confused us. We are confused because we let our, like you said, our subjective morality blind us to the truth.
Said this nigga here.
Because without God, like I said before, sir, anything can be right or wrong. If God doesn't exist, morality is just an opinion. Right? Objective morality requires a divine lawgiver. And we may not understand it, but the reason we don't understand it is because we're fallen. And the Bible is very clear about that.
Okay, so very clear. Believe that women are property. So women having the right to vote and thank you, Professor Hizzle.
I'm not confused, sir. I'm just agreeing with my brother here. He understands the Bible, apparently.
Oh,
and, it sounds like you understand that.
I understand it, but I think it's
just don't agree with. Yeah, I understand that.
Terrible.
Right,
so
right.
Don't put it like we are in agreement.
Right, I get it.
Right. So you would rather be in a situation you think that the world should be where women can't vote. Right, women can't give a pledge, and unless it's honored by a man. That if you think she's on you, you give her a magic potion to see if she has a miscarriage. You You think all those things are fine, and slavery is fine, and genocide is fine.
You own
I ate
crypto.
shit
Do you
that
really
day.
own it? For many users, your tokens sit in some
I'm
company's
surprised I lasted this long.
Well, it's
When did you let him know?
Huh?
When did you let him know?
Oh, it's coming up. It's about to come up. Yeah, I'm gonna let him know in a minute.
You're so evil.
It gets
Scott.
too crazy. I know this is fucked up.
it's fine, but it's also fine if you don't want to go by the law too, because those laws only apply to God's chosen people, the Hebrews, the Jews. That law wasn't for the Gentiles. That law was for the Jews. That's for them.
Hold on, because Jesus, see, there's a difference between Jesus Christianity and Paul Christianity. Jesus Christianity, and it depends on which one you follow. Jesus Christianity says that you are supposed to maintain the laws, that you are not to take away one tittle of the law until heaven and earth has passed away. Now,
Yeah, he didn't abolish the law. He didn't abolish the law for the Jews. No, he fulfilled them. As a Jewish person, Jesus was a good Jew. He fulfilled the law the way it was.
You a follower? So you're a follower of Paul then?
Well, because I'm a Gentile, yeah.
So you follow Paul's thoughts?
Yeah, because the Holy Spirit let Paul and the other apostles and leaders of the church know and understand that Gentiles were not under the yoke of the law. Now the Jews still are, because they're God's chosen people. And so Jesus never said that that they were released from the law ever. Did you know that?
No, I understand that. So what you're saying, then you would be okay if Israel came and genocided everyone in America who did not agree with them.
It depends if that was a command by the authority. If it was a command by subjective opinion, no.
How would you be able to determine it?
Well, that's a good question, because everything ended. The revelations ended after let's say shortly after the first century, when the apostles died off. Now we have the church. There are no longer knowledge was no longer imparted through the Holy Spirit in that way. So I know Mormons will disagree. I know Jehovah's Witnesses will disagree.
Of course, because you're playing right into the point that the government and elitists took control and they decided that, and now you believe that.
Well, that's your interpretation.
No, that's what happened. It was writers within the Catholic Church who decided those church fathers who wrote that now the time frame of revelation is ended. That way they can maintain control based on the doctrines that they already have. Because
that's what they said. But now how you interpret that is all based on your framework. So if you start from a framework of God is not real, Christianity is false, of course you're going to look at it like man said all that. But if you have faith that God is real, then you're going to understand that that's the word of God.
So God cannot bring you revelation, a new thought. God cannot speak to you. No, but you just said that all that stopped.
Can or will? What do you mean?
You just said all that stopped.
It did stop.
God doesn't bring you revelation.
That's right.
So you don't get revelation.
The special revelation is in the Bible.
But is that not God? So if you look at the Bible, you read something,
stripping them up,
and you have thought A. Somebody else reads the Bible, they have thought B. How do you know which one is right, thought A or thought B?
The Holy Spirit. Now, the Holy Spirit will help me to understand the Bible, but it will not reveal new information. It's not going to give me information about what God wills to do for another country on that level. It's basically the Bible tells you right there, all scripture is inspired by God, and God and the Holy Spirit gives you understanding. It's like a tool that you can use to decode the word.
So
you see what I'm saying?
So if President Trump reads the Bible receives holy. How would you know if the Holy Spirit is telling him to go down here and attack Venezuela? Or is it just about oil?
It's not. Donald Trump is just another human being, flawed, and he's
but
not.
How would you know? How would you know if he's been directed by the Holy Spirit or not?
Because he's not in the Bible. Everything that's in the Bible is what I follow. If the Bible says it, I believe it. End of story.
The Bible says that Israel can go and genocide all the people up to.
I was cracking myself up.
All the way.
I was trying not to laugh.
Down across into Egypt to the borders of the Nile River. So you would be okay with that?
Throw it as hard as you want. Go on. Watching it zip away feels like it might just keep going, right? Nope. Here.
Like I said, it depends. Are you saying God directed that, or?
Yes. When God made his promise to Abraham,
mm-hmm.
the landmass that the promise includes would be the top part of the Arabian Peninsula, from the Nile River, clear all the way across to the Euphrates River, which goes into Iraq and cuts across the northern parts of Saudi Arabia, Syria, Jordan, all that, all the way up the Euphrates, which cuts across into the Turkish Peninsula, so Lebanon and all that. That is the promised land to Abraham. The way they was instructed in Joshua to gain that land was to go in and genocide all the people in that land. The ones that you didn't kill, you made them into your slaves. Your neighboring countries, you make them into your slaves. Mm-hmm. So that's what the Bible says. Mm-hmm. You would be okay with that?
Oh yeah, of course. It's the word of God. God says it. Like I already said that. If God says it, it's the truth. Not what we think. You see what I'm saying? You're making yourself the authority.
I certainly am, because I have a higher moral compass than your God and you, because I do not think that it is okay for Israel to go and kill women, children, babies, non-combatant, to take away the sovereignty of another country. I do not think that they have that right because they believe in their God. And so all those women and children who will suffer from that, all the babies who will die from that, you're fine with all those children dying because they have to kill everything that has breath. I think that demonstrates exactly how much hatred this book creates. Because
you're right.
Honestly, I think you are incredibly immoral for standing here and saying that you support all these atrocities of this book.
This book is very hateful and it's very ignorant. It was born in a time of ignorance. And I'm laughing my ass off that you actually took me serious, because you know who I am, because you were on my show.
I didn't.
You don't remember me? Okay.
No, yeah. I don't. Now I don't remember you, but I could tell by the way he was talking. I was like, okay, there's ain't too serious, but I'm gonna push this and keep him on here until we get to a point.
No, I'm not serious about none of that. But you were actually. We did an interview one time a few months ago, this summer. You just don't remember, but. Yeah. I think it was before we called it the discussion, and now the channel mirror point. But yeah, it was called the discussion. It was me and Sophia. But yeah. So when I saw that you didn't remember me, that's why I went ahead and started playing along.
I ain't gonna lie, you know what? Majority of it, you had me. The part of me was like, this dude can't be real. But the majority, I gotta give it to you. The majority of it, you had me, and I was like, I'm gonna clip this shit.
Clip it anyways. It'd be great. I mean, because if you think about it, if they're really consistent, that's how they should actually talk. They should actually act like they're batshit crazy. Like if you really think about it. But all this dancing around, they're just being fake. They obviously know there's a problem with their book. And so they hate it, man. hate their book. They run away from their book. You know.
They do, and man, you had so many people in the comments.
I saw. They want to kill me, buddy. They want to have my head.
That is exactly how they should be talking, though. They should be talking that way. They should believe those exact things because that's what their book talks about. Because it is filled with so much hatred. I'm so
like the one where I think I was arguing with a Christian who was trying to debate me about you know, the marriage sheet. You know how if you know, you'd know that the woman was not a virgin on her marriage night. Yeah, and they'd take her out and stone her. But as it turns out, over 50, you know, close to 50%.
Hold on, let me pause it. Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
We actually had one like that. Remember, he justified slavery and everything, and we made like.
Yeah.
That's where we came up with pretzel logic.
Yeah, pretzel logic. He had to turn himself into pretzels to make it make sense.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny.
Some of them act just exactly like that. Like you got them down pat for real.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I wanted you to see that because I knew you'd get a kick out of it.
Oh, it was great. You're just man, you're so mean though sometimes.
I was cold hearted. Later on in that show, he's like, man, this black lady came on the show and she was like, man, I'm telling you what, that white dude you had on there, the guy with the hat, man, I was running around my house. I was pacing back and forth like, no, he didn't. Oh, no, he didn't just say that. Oh, I wanted to come through that damn monitor and kill that motherfucker. Because he better be glad he told me it was a joke.
You definitely played that role, Scott.
Yeah. Yeah, trolling.
On that note, though, y'all, I gotta leave y'all. I gotta get the fuck out of this chair. It's been over 3 hours, man. Love y'all.
Yeah, me too, man. I gotta go too. I'm about to starve to death. Well, y'all have a good one, man. Like and subscribe to the channel. We'll have more content next week. And we'll talk to you guys later. Talk to you later, Neil.
See you.
All right.